What do you really think it costs to build a 3,000 horsepower Viper? Do you think fucking 3,000 horsepower is something fucking cheap? Our main source of business is building really fast Vipers. We were the first ones to have a fully running and functioning Gen 5 twin turbo car.
Because you hear the name, right? You hear Calvo.
And you know not to race it.
Welcome back to Go Hard Podcast. I'm your host, Noel.
Justin White.
Got JustinWhiteTuned, man, again with us on the podcast. Just want to say thank you for putting this together. Pretty much contact Calvo. Was like, hey, let's get a podcast in.
You want to talk some shit on the mic? He said, let's do it. We're in.
Boom. Guys, you've seen his cars racing, Florida 2K, Texas 2K, on the streets, all over Texas. You've seen his cars perform. It's pretty much like a legacy car because you hear the name, right? You hear Calvo.
And you know not to race it.
And you know not to race it, you know? So he's going hard, and we're going to share today his story, his background, you know, where he started before Calvo, day to day, and then the future for Calvo. Let's give it up for Calvo Motorsports. Introduce yourself,
Thanks
man.
for having me, actually. Yeah, welcome to Texas, or welcome to Austin.
Welcome to
California.
Welcome to Austin. I'm sorry you guys had to come here.
Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you.
I'm Antonio Calvo. I own Calvo Motorsports. We were established in 2013, and our main source of business is building really fast Vipers. We've kind of lined out the platform pretty well over the last, I'm going to say, decade. We do everything pretty much in-house. I know a lot of people like to claim that, but you know, it's everything from fabrication, engine building, wiring, tuning. I guess you can consider Colin not in-house since he's his own business, but he lives literally in the house, like down the street over there. And he only tunes cars here. Yeah, basically.
The machine? The new machine shop, right?
The machine shop, yeah, that's new for the last year. I pretty much have been just doing that by myself. That's going to be a new venture. It's not when it's really all finally lined out. It's going to have a different name. I'm going to call it Gray Ghost Racing Engines. It's going to be separate from Calvo Motorsports. We want to supply the industry with. We want to keep it small. We don't want to do volume. We don't want to lose the quality that's there.
Right.
Basically, work with a few different shops on a few different platforms, and basically be able to supply motors and not have to wait. That's the biggest thing. I'm going to come up with the capital myself to basically have motors in stock, cores ready to go.
Nice.
If I don't want to work with the public on it. We're going to basically be working with shops and just have packages ready for them to go in stock. So, hey, I need a motor today. You know, if you need it that bad, we could Delta Dash it for you and get it to you same day. You know, that's the goal, the year-long goal for it. I've been working, 13 to 15 hours a day to try to get not only everybody at the machine shop caught up there, but to the point where I can not need to be at my shop. It's only 2 miles down the road. I'm back and forth like crazy anyway. But it's been a new. My start was always fabrication in college. I worked at Full Race. So Full Race, I think they were founded in like 2003 or 2004. The owner, his name's Jeff Racer. funny last name, but that's his last name. Him and some of his friends, they were mechanical engineers at Arizona State, and they started a fabrication company for their Hondas. So they were literally building manifolds, I think, like out of their laundry room at one point.
Damn.
And they came up with this. I don't know if it's. Don't quote me on this. But I think they had to have some like senior class project, and they made a robotic TIG welder. And the robotic TIG welder basically had like 2 cups on it, and using 30 amps because of the way they used it, you didn't have to bevel Schedule 10 pipe or anything, and it would just bzz, turn, and you'd have this perfect bead that had full penetration at 30 amps, so they wouldn't really warp. And I met Jeff because I went to Arizona State, and when I went out there, I didn't know anybody, but Dave Licalio from Head Games has done my cylinder heads since, I don't know, I was like in high school. He was 2 towns. We were in West Windsor and he was in Ewing, so there was like 2 towns in between us. And when I moved out there, he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna set you up with my friend Jeff. You know, since you don't know anybody out there, this that." So I literally, when I moved out there, I didn't even have an apartment yet. I was gonna stay on my friend's couch until I found something for that day or that week or whatever. It was 2 weeks before school started, and I stopped by. Jeff invited me over to check out Full Race. And I was a big 300ZX guy, big Nissan guy, so I knew that's where like it all started was with 300ZXs. I was 19 when I built the big power car. It made 793 wheel. So 2003 or 4, 2004, I built that car in my parents' garage, and I went to school. Like late 2005, 2006. And so Jeff was building a 240SX that was called the R14 project, and it had a full GTR drivetrain in it, all-wheel drive, everything. And I guess the car fell off the lift, and they had to have like the rear quarter panel fixed, and I think it was like turbo magazine. If you look at like whatever November 2006 was on the cover of SEMA everywhere, the car was on the cover. And he was like, "Yeah, I don't know how I'm going to get this car together in such a short amount of time, like for this magazine shoot for SEMA and this and that." And I'm like, "I don't have anything to do like for the next 2 weeks before school starts. You want some help?" And he was like, "Yeah, like you don't mind helping me?" I was like, "No." So him and I like literally stayed up till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning every day. Until school started, obviously. And he's like, "Hey, do you like need a job or have a job?" And I was like, "No, I'm definitely could use a job." He's like, "Well, I'm going to put you in shipping." And then Full Race had a day and a night shift for the fabrication side. They had 23 fabricators at the time. It was a massive operation. And I would basically go there at like 9 o'clock in the morning, pack boxes to ship stuff, go to school, come back afterwards, and start learning how to weld in the back. And eventually I went from Honda traction bars, chromoly traction bars, to downpipes to manifolds. The manifolds were all like robotically TIG welded, and then you would finish them, the runners to the head flange to collector. And then a lot of my other job there was when they would prototype stuff on cars, they would have me take the car apart because the other guys were fabricators. They weren't like really car people. Mm-hmm. Cars would get scratched or not put back together right and this and that. And, we were doing a lot of super prototype stuff. We had, fast spooling 1.25 inch manifold versus the big power T6, 1.5 inch manifold, things like that. But like nobody would want to leave their car there for months on end. So you take a car apart, put it back together in a week, send it off, get somebody else's car to prototype their new stuff once we did more testing on things. And then I finished school, went back to New York, where I'm from, worked there for a few years, tried working in the family business. It just wasn't for me. It was construction / real estate stuff, and I loved cars too much. I had a real fast Supra. I mean, for 2008 and 9, it made 900 wheel. I guess that was fast back then.
Yeah.
Used to go street racing out in what was it called? Deer Park Avenue, and out in Long Island, out in Philly all the time.
What part of New York?
Brooklyn, like right over the Brooklyn Bridge. It's
But that old airfield they have out there.
in Brooklyn.
There's I think it's no, it's around Brooklyn. It's like there's like an old airfield that a lot of people go out there and do like recreational activities, but they race out there too. I don't know if I was supposed to say that.
Man, I don't know.
I've tested a bunch of cars out there.
I've never seen that. Like, I lived literally 2 blocks away from the Brooklyn Navy Yard.
Well, this past year. This is recently.
Oh, okay, yeah,
So-
maybe I haven't been.
It might have been it might have been an active runway.
I
that
remember
long
people
ago.
running on like the Jackie Robinson Expressway at 3:00 in the morning, literally like, just like stopping traffic.
They're wild out there.
Yeah, it's a different.
I've been there a few times, and they're like, "Yeah, we're gonna race right here." I'm like, "That's the interstate."
Yeah,
they're like,
yeah,
"No, it hooks really good right here." I'm like, "That's the interstate."
Yeah, they'll just literally get out and start flagging people. It's
Yeah.
a wild, definitely a New York. Like, it's funny. My wife's, she's from Corpus, and she's just like in awe of everything in New York. She's like, I just don't understand. Like, people have to walk in the snow, and I'm like, yeah, like there's no, like, I still have friends that don't have driver's licenses.
They all drive around with those butt flaps,
Yeah, so they don't get, the bumpers don't get like,
but the bumpers are all destroyed under
they're
the butt
destroyed
flap from the
anyway.
dirt.
Exactly. Yeah, and then I came down. What brought me to Texas was Boostlogic. Zohair just bought it from Keen and Chris Johnson. It was like the end of 2009, and he said, "I just got a GTR. Like, would you like to come help prototype a turbo kit for it?" So I came down. I was only supposed to be down here for like a month. I wound up staying 3 months, and then he offered me a full-time job to manage the shop and help try to basically prototype, fab, this, that, and I think he was just learning how to really run the business, and I was working like around the fucking clock. It was a lot, and Cobb actually needed some help with something. They got all these downpipes that weren't welded from overseas. They were just in crates, and they needed somebody to assemble them. And I threw some price out there, and they were like, "Okay, how many can you do a night?" 3. I'm like, probably 10. And so like I'd leave Boostlogic and I'd go to Cobb and I'd weld up these 10 downpipes every night, and I would just leave them there. I had a code to get into the fab shop or whatever. And they were like, "Hey, so we have a deal with Ford that we're getting one of the first Ford Focuses, and they want to build a time attack car, and we're gonna need somebody like you full time. So like, what do you like? Would you consider leaving Boostlogic?" And I was like, Zohair was a good friend of mine. We were roommates, and there was not like any hard feelings or anything, but it was just too good of an opportunity. It was a very corporate job, 9 to 5, full benefits versus more of this atmosphere or whatever. It was more structured, and actually it was a great time in my life. And I wound up having a small fab shop at my house where I was doing Zohair's manifolds anyway. So I had brand new F-150, an open trailer in my 1,200 horsepower Supra, and life was actually the easiest and it's ever been. Like it seems like almost want to revert back to that now.
You're like, it's so easy. How can I mess this up?
Yeah, how can I mess this up? Oh yeah, Cobb got bought out by some big conglomerate, and like all the fun stuff went away. The big raises went away, and there was no racing, no events. I didn't get along with a few of the people that work there, and I just decided it was time for me to leave. And the next step was start my own shop. So I started a small fab shop.
What year was this?
This was 2013, like summer. I think I was waiting for Russell Walker to get out of his unit. It was a little, maybe 1,800 square feet with the office and bathroom shop on like North Lamar. And while Russell was still finishing up some cars because he was moving to Portland, I was going up to RSI to help them basically try to get caught up on stuff there, build stuff for them, knock some stuff out. But Rockport, not Rockport, it's like Bridgeport or something. It's far.
Bridgeport?
Yeah. It's like an hour east of Dallas.
Okay.
Well, I think that's where it was. It was where the old MVP Motorsports was. You know, I'd drive up there. I'd be staying at Will's house. Like, you know, it's an hour commute there and back every night. Like, it was just a lot. And then my unit became available that I was taking over from Russell, and I came here, and I just started working on some local cars, doing a lot of fabrication on Supra stuff.
Did you ever deal with like Titan or any of those guys at that time?
No, actually, believe it or not, Mark Conti from Real Street, he helped me out a ton. You know, when I first opened up, you know, they gave me like highest level dealer discount on stuff, and you know, my credit card had like a fucking $4,000 fucking, you know, limit on it or something. So like, if I needed to buy 2 turbos for something and they were 8,000, he's like, just pay it off, you know, pay us back or whatever. Like,
yeah.
Mark was super good people. No, I started doing production work for Powerhouse and like Dinosaur. I don't know if Ross Baird.
I've heard of that name.
Yeah, so Ross owned Powerhouse and Dinosaur, and they were doing just a bunch of. I was building like 30. I think they were like power steering reservoir things and all this stuff. And it's kind of important that to the story, because I wound up breaking a transmission in my Supra, and it was a get rag, and you couldn't buy parts for them, and they were $12,000, and I was just getting
12,000
for a new. Yeah, for basically you can't find them new. They were like 10 to 12,000 used. So yeah, super transmission. So I was talking to Ross, and Ross is like, "Hey man, I got a deal for you." And I said, "What?" He goes, "I got a brand new one upstairs. I will let you take this one home if you also take this Viper that I have." It was a Gen 2. I think Ricky Crossley owned it. It was a Hefner car, and Ricky, I think, like hit a curb or something. It didn't look like there was any damage besides the rim, but it totaled the car. Yeah.
Wow.
The frame rail in the front is very thin, and
I was gonna say, is that because of that way that frame's designed?
It's just very thin, and it pushes in real easy. So Ross bought the car, and what wound up happening was he put a frame in it. It took him forever to put a frame in it. He was pissed off about it. He did all this stuff, and he was like, "Hey, so these cars are actually really badass, Calvo. Like, trust me. Like, can you build the turbo kit? I'll pay for the turbos. Just pay for the material and do the labor, and I'll give you this transmission." So we did it, and then, you know, I think the car's first pass was like a 770 at 186, like
Jeez.
off the trailer.
What trans?
Glide.
Damn.
Yeah.
Does the Gen 2 have turbo pockets as well?
Oh, I put them up top. They were twin 76 42R precisions
Wow.
up top. Yeah. It was on an AM Infinity, and then like the car had a few different iterations, but like more of these things started showing up at my shop. And what we realized was it was just like they always had a really bad name, you know, being like tail happy cars at this and that, and like at the end of the day, they were old Dodges, and like, you know, things wear out, and people just didn't do the proper maintenance, like make sure the suspension's good, make sure the bushings are good, or, you know, try not to tune it on a stock ECU, as you know, like they're just not.
Learn that one.
Yeah, like people were trying to tune like 1,000, 1,200 horsepower twin turbo cars on a SCT handheld with like, you know, some manual boost controller on like 20-inch, you know, Pirellis or something. Of course, what do you think's going to happen, you know? And we saw the opportunity of like how great the chassis was. You know, it's Billy Stockland's been coming by here a lot lately to help us with some stuff, and him and Al have said multiple times, like, man, these things are actually set up really fucking well from the factory to be like do multiple. You know, they're meant to be road race cars.
Right.
You know, they're meant to go around turns, but they go fast in a straight line really well. So yeah, that kind of took off, and then, you know, we had the whole learning curve of running a business and you know, managing money, and, you know, all the stuff that comes along with it, and, you know, customers trying to take advantage, and, you know, you bend
stuff.
over, yeah, the real stuff, like you bend over backwards and you start like realizing like, oh man, I just lost $1,000 here, $1,200 here, I forgot to put these fittings on an invoice. It was a learning curve, and, you know, we learned we learned, and, you know, here we are today.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. having owned shops too, you don't really think about all that, and
The pennies
then
add
it's
to
really
dollars.
hard. Sometimes it's really hard to bill for the right amount of hours because you're like, man, I could do that in 4 hours, and as my wife pointed out, my 4 hours is 8.
Yeah.
But you don't really notice that, and then you want to help people out. But something I've learned over the years, and this is kind of crappy, is anybody that you go out of your way to help, and this is 100 out of 100. I've never seen a difference, and I've seen this at most shops. Anybody you go out of your way to help will burn you.
Yep.
I've never ever went out of my way to help somebody and not been burned by them. But you'll get those customers that are like, "Hey man, you sure you charge me enough? Like, are you sure that this is good, man? Here's a little extra." Those guys, the ones you don't try to actively help, are always the best.
And their
It's
cars
weird
go the
'cause you-
smoothest. I have some really big customers right now that are doing some big builds, and I'm fair on my pricing. You know, some of the stuff is like really out of the scope of what we do, so I have to bill hourly. You know, but it's not. They're great people. I consider them close friends. But
that was one of my big issues is when you're doing this, because this is a hobby, this is fun. Nobody has to have a race car.
No.
Well, I mean, I have to have one, but you know what I'm saying.
But you have to pay your mortgage.
Nobody has to have one
yeah.
to go to work and has to have one to survive, even though some people do that as their daily. Weird. But you become friends. You build relationships with these people because, like I'll tune somebody's car and I'm tuning that car for a few months. We're talking, we're chatting. We just kind of get off on a good thing. And when I did the shop, it was the same way. And you think these guys are your friends, so you want to help them out. You want to do this, but realistically, we're struggling already as it is.
It's, I've always said, we have the highest expectations of stuff. When we measure stuff, we have to measure in 10,000ths of an inch. Contractors, they can frame a door if it's off half an inch. They just move the jamb a little bit or send somebody out. That. Like, we fuck up something that's it could be a $40,000-$50,000 motor.
Could be a life.
Yeah, it could be a life. Exactly.
That's how I look at it.
Suspension. Yeah. A lot of people don't realize, they're like, oh, it took you this long to do this. And it goes back to that saying, like, you're not paying for my time, you're paying for my knowledge on stuff, and you're paying to have like the highest quality of product on things. It's tough to get that out there, but like, I've seen other people in other industries that are all friends, and when they send each other business and things like that, there's no deals or discounts. It's, that when everybody helps each other out, everybody eats and makes money,
Yeah.
I think that's like one of the other shittiest parts about this industry is there are a lot of people that will be friendly to your face, and they have no problem talking a lot of shit behind your back, and the funny part is there's no reason to like stop a person from coming here. Obviously we've built a really good name for ourselves, but I hear it like not just about me or I hear other people talking about other shops that have great reputations and do great work, and there's no reason for it. Like, you're just taking like bread off that person's table.
And there's no benefit to it.
There's no benefit, and like at the end of the day, they just look like fucking assholes.
Right. Nobody wants to go to somebody because they're talking bad about somebody else.
No, exactly. You're not going to get anywhere else. And it's funny, as you get older, we were discussing this before about wasting time on the internet arguing with people. As you get older, like, your priorities and everything change. Like, my wife's pregnant with twins, and like I'm working 13, 15 hours a day right now, but like at the end of the day, like, I can't wait to get home to her. Like, when those kids come, I can't wait. And it's not like the business is taking a sidestep. It's just something like a new chapter. But yeah, it's like, why would you want to waste time, with negative energy when there's so much other good things in life,
When the family kind of regulates you. Like, at the end of the day, I'll fly out, I'll go tune a bunch of cars, hang out with the people, do what I got to do. I'm away from home. I don't like it, but I know, and my wife understands, it's a necessary thing. But when it's time to go home, it's time to go home. Mm-hmm. Sunday, Mondays, those are my days off. Don't call me on those days. Let me do what I need to do. And it took me, sad to say, 32 years to realize that. So before I actually was like, I need to do something that we're spending time with the family. That's what matters. And you notice you change a lot.
Oh,
like,
huge.
when I am working, I'm dedicated. I'm there. Sometimes I'll tune in 2, 3, 4 in the morning. Different countries. I'll adjust to their time. But if it's Sunday and Monday, it's family time. That's all there is to it. That's what's happening.
Yeah,
But it does make you. I feel like it makes me more productive and more focused on my job because I know this is job, this is family. And before I would just merge all that into
social media,
I'll get to it when
fun,
I can.
friends, group chats, this, that. It's like I'm on like maybe 3 or 4 group chats with friends, customers, or whatever. And it's funny. It drives my wife whenever she sees it's this one group. She's like, you guys like with this freaking group chat all the time, and then like their wives are saying the same thing. Like,
Wendy gives me so much shit about group chats. She's like, "Why are you in all these stupid group?" Because she handles the messages on social media, and she's like, "What is this stupid group chat for?" I'm like, "It's the local racer boys, you know." She's like, "You don't even race those guys." I'm like, "But it's fun to watch them."
It's it's like we were saying before, time it's something you can't buy. You're here for a certain amount on this planet. Make the best of it. There's no point in like just wearing yourself arguing with like if that person thinks that about you, you're not going to change their mind.
Nope.
There's no point. Like the best thing you could do is just walk away from it, not argue. Like the internet banner and this and that, it just makes everybody look bad. The whole industry, like it just.
But it takes forever to figure that out.
It does.
I mean, I've been told by all the big guys in the industry as I was coming up, it's like, "Hey, get off the internet, stop arguing." I'm like, "Yeah, but I got to make my point." And man, I fought that forever.
You just let the cars do the talking,
Which nowadays
people talk a bunch of shit about me, and it's like, how are you gonna say that? Like, where are all these cars that have been blown up and that customers are bitching and this and that? You'd hear it on the internet.
I hear that about me. They're like, "Oh, well, he puts the car on edge," and I'm like, "Man, if y'all didn't know, all the cars I tune, there might be a small handful that I'll actually push.
Yeah,
the rest of them." They're just on our regular stuff. It's not my fault. They're faster than yours.
That's why we have
It's just
packages.
that-
Like, yes, and customers get frustrated sometimes because like we'll make a dyno number and they're like, "Just leave it there." I'm like, "No," and they're like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "You got an 1800 package. You're getting 1800 horsepower." Or just people in general getting caught up on dyno numbers. Like, don't get caught up on the dyno number. Just go enjoy the car.
That's why I'm kind of happy that the Draggy, a lot of people don't like it, but I like it because
I hate those fucking things.
I like it because I can show somebody, hey, this is what your car's really making. Go run it on the Draggy, because if not, they're going to go run it on a dyno. And I've had both ways.
The Draggy wars of the fucking... Why isn't my car dragging right? And I'm like, well, it's 30 degrees outside. You're on a 19-inch tire making 2,000 horsepower. Like, what do you expect on asphalt? Like, well, this customer draggied better than this, or,
I guess I like that they show the stats so you can kind of compare. It's better than dyno sheet racing.
It's
because I'll get a guy.
I
He's
just
like, well,
don't
I made
understand what happened
less.
to good old just racing.
Because internet killed it.
But it's like, that was fun. Like I missed those days of going out. It was funny. Me and Colin went somewhere a few weeks ago, and he was in his McLaren, and I was in, I think my ACR. It's 750, 800 wheel or whatever. And, we were just messing around on the street, 2 slow fucking cars. And I'm like, I had more fun doing that than I've
About 3.5 years ago is when it died.
Dude, the racing scene
the amount
in
of
Houston
races
seems to be dead. You start looking at TX2K from like 2010 to 2013, 2014. Like
2013, 2014 were my big years.
The car scenes was amazing. It was huge. There was, all the underground cars coming out. I remember one year Underground bought their first twin turbo Aventador. Like the thing looked like a fucking space shuttle, you know? And it just seemed like every year after that, it was like almost got a little trashier, more outside people from Houston would come in, just fuck everything up. The police got worse. And, but just in general, you don't see, even on the internet, like the car meetups that you used to, like, where
the 1320 videos that used to go crazy and you could have so many of them, but it's just not there anymore. And a lot of the big issues that Houston had, which I think a lot of these cities are having, was the takeover crap. Because like before Texas 2K, the last one in Houston, They had, and it wasn't even in Houston. They had some takeover thing outside of Houston, and it pissed off all the police. So they vowed to make sure
let
they
me
handled
ask
it
you
for 2K.
something. Do you think the car culture is dying with the younger generation of people, that there isn't there anymore, you know? And then the older people just like that are still like the older versions, you know, like the people that are now in their 40s, 50s that were out street racing in their, you know, in their 30s, those, you know, big power cars, big power, saying 1,300 horsepower, whatever. You know, they still love cars, but they've grown up, and there's just nothing there to replace their spots.
I think one of the big things is, I mean, obviously the internet's what killed it, but a lot of these younger kids have access to make this money on like TikTok and stuff like that. So they buy these cars and they don't respect them like we did. You know, my first car was a V6 Camaro, and I love that thing. Put a 200 shot on it, manual 5-speed. I was beating Cobras. I was excited. I loved it, right? But it was a piece of shit. But it was my piece of shit that I worked all summer cutting grass for. But these kids are able to buy, you know, McLarens, R8s, Lamborghinis at 21 years old because
it's crazy, isn't it?
I mean, they found this thing, and I'm happy for them. You know, I have no hate for those. You know, I deal with a lot of them, but I know for a fact that they don't respect what they've achieved like we
they didn't
did.
Physically work for it. They didn't have to grind for it. I think that's a big thing. In
And some do. Don't get me wrong. Some do.
No,
but
there's always the
it's not like
exception to
what we
everything.
dealt with where, you know, we had to wrench on our own stuff. We weren't able to make money like that.
No,
we wanted to go fast. We had to buy some piece of shit and make it less of a piece of shit. I mean, that's what it was.
It's.
But the other thing is, like I said, it's the takeover stuff. I don't understand it. I don't think I'll ever understand it. You know, if somebody tells me they have a takeover car and they want me to tune it, I won't do it.
I just don't understand. Like, you want, so the whole point of a takeover, like, while they're doing donuts, is
I'm
to
not going
get
to say
hit by
I
a car?
understand it. I don't know.
I don't get it. Like,
I mean,
I
don't get
see
me
that
wrong.
They run.
Don't get me
so,
wrong.
like,
That's my favorite part.
no, like seriously. So like,
That's all the videos you see, right? Just getting hit.
like they'll run and the car is swinging and then just takes their legs out and you see
The
it
funny
flying.
part is they don't move until they get hit. They're
think
like, oh, a car.
That's why I'm asking. Like, I honestly think like they try to get hit by the car to see if they can like. I don't know.
See if they can take it. I'm a man. Watch this.
flies the
Charger
farthest?
coming.
We used to play bloody knuckles in high school, like
Quarters.
yeah, or like
Yeah,
you know
you
now,
can
like
tell.
yeah, now you have kids that are like, I want to get hit by. I guess I mean they're the generation that eats Tide Pods,
But to see, but
so
the thing is like, again, on the they don't respect the thing. They'll take these cars that their mom bought, and they'll go out there, they'll hit somebody, kill 2 people, and then everybody will jump on it, smash it, set it on fire, and keep partying. And I'm like, where was this happening? Oh, just on the interstate.
Yeah.
Dude, why? You know how many Kmart's went out of business and Toys R Us's? Use their parking lots.
Right.
They're not using it. Right?
I just don't understand it. It's like, I guess we're the old people now that don't
To
understand.
each their own. It's stupid.
The younger generation of kids, but like I just, you know, I miss just going racing, having a good time. Like, you know, even the drama at the events, you know, the shit talking and the this and the that, and I hate to say it, you know, one of the most saturated, like, it used to be the Viper shops. Like me and Nth Moto used to go at it all the time back in the day, and now we're like super friendly. Like we pit together now. Everything. It's the Audi Lambo guys, man. You get on some of the Smack Talk pages, it's just like,
Oh God, I'm on that one.
I
know which one you're talking about.
That market,
They go hard though, because I guess they got enough money, they got time.
dude. I
The
don't know.
research they do. Boy, you talk about a deep dive. That's worse than a female's deep dive.
Yeah, you go to the Smack Talk pages and find out whatever you need. But like, you know, it's another thing with like that platform now. You know, I feel like it's a race to the bottom. You're having all these shops that can provide something. Ever since Motec released their plug and play Huracan kit, everybody and their mother can literally put a fucking Huracan together in their garage. You buy AMS, ETS, Boostlogic, or like one of the other 3 to 5 shops that are building turbo kits. You buy a trans from Shep or Shep, Boostlogic, or Hefner, right? Oh, the Hefner is the other turbo kit you can buy. You buy a motor from, us, whoever else, right? And then, you install a Motec AMS fuel system, and guess what? You have a 2,000 horsepower, Huracan that you put together in your garage. Like I see it like all the time. Like people, and it's like, what they're doing is now everybody used to say how like underground racing was so expensive. It's like, no, underground racing is charging what everybody else should be charging to make a honest living for the car industry. Like there's so many shops that are willing to just race to the bottom for no fucking reason. It's like if you do all the math, right? And there are very few shops in this country right now that like do everything from engine building, firmware development, fabrication. And I know like Kevin uses Proline, and they've been using Proline's some of the best engines around. Like why wouldn't you use Proline? But like, they developed with John Reed their own firmware well before Motec released it. Like that was the floodgate, I think, for the Audi Lambo market, was Motec releasing that. Because like the Cyvex, it worked, but it was just never great. Like you never saw a Cyvex car go fast,
Right.
Once Motec released that, you didn't need to go to underground. Underground and Dallas Performance were your only like really 2 spots. And then Cheapy Race kind of popped up out of nowhere. That was, he was using Cyvex on stuff. But yeah, there's not, if you look around, like, who does firmware development? John Reed, Colin,
Delgado.
I think Shane T does, and one of the Zelaya brothers I know does. Corbin Johnson, I think he does firmware stuff. But there's not many people that can write CAN, or reverse engineer CAN. And it's like you have those pages of just all these shops that are overnight experts, but yet they can't do a single one of those things. I'm pretty sure if you handed a mic to most of them, they wouldn't know how to use it, and that's kind of like what I was saying before when we were having that conversation. What kind of cheapens this industry is like you have the people that can frame the door, right? Buy the door and just install it, versus the people that have to actually like build the door, the people that have to measure in the thousands of inches and not fuck stuff up. And I see it in engines that come from other shops, like just absolute fucking disasters. Like
I see it in shops,
yeah.
Sadly. I mean, because it's kind of my job is I go to all these different shops, and luckily most of them, if I see an issue, I'll bring it up to them. And most of them, because they know I've been around all this, they'll listen and they'll readjust. But I've been to a lot of shops that just think they know it, and they're just destroying these vehicles, and they don't care because they'll just close it down and open another shop.
I remember there was some fab shop in Houston. I forget what it was called, like Limitless Performance or something. I forget. But we did a Viper for a guy in Houston. Fully built motor, dry sump, Motec, sequential trans, quad carbon clutch. Like you name it, the car had it, right? And his bill was like $150,000 or something, right? And the guy was like, I could do all that for 40. Why? Why would you do all that? You can't buy the fucking parts for 40 grand.
Right.
You just can't. And then like, why would you want to just give stuff away? Like, or if I think the guy built Mustangs or something. I forget what it was. This is 2014, 2015, but like
LPF.
Yeah.
Oh
Yep.
shit.
LPF.
Whatever happened to them?
I don't know.
They went
I've never had
under?
an issue with Justin. Well, there is a video online of Justin talking shit at a street race, and I ran around the car to try to beat his ass. But
I just remember,
yeah, man,
like,
we'll post that one every now and then.
Like remember like him getting on the internet saying how I'm like overpriced and this and that and blah blah blah. I'm like, dude, you go build a motor. You go figure out how to build a PPG transmission. You ain't gonna do it.
Yeah,
You know?
he did a lot of turbo kits of Mustangs.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah,
I mean,
looked like
I'll give it to him. He had some fast cars, but from being in a lot of these groups you see, and I don't know this for a fact, but a lot of people didn't get their cars back or got their cars back with not all the parts, or he would do a turbo kit and not have it. I mean, I don't personally know any of this, but that's what I've seen about it. And I think he like we talked about, people get out there, they get running. He, in my opinion, had a good product because he was fast. He was out there running with the midnight cars and stuff like that. I don't know who did better or whatever. I don't care. He was fabbing, tuning, everything himself. But I think he blew up too quick and he couldn't handle it. And he started, Peter and Paul, just like most of the shops end up doing, instead of just closing down. A lot of people don't have it in them to notice that, hey, man, I can't make
You're
this.
working for no reason. Like you're literally working to rob Peter to pay Paul.
Once it gets to that, man, it's like, look, dude, close down and restructure.
That, or what you do is you just put your tail between your legs. You tell the people, listen, sorry, I fucked up. And, I know shops that have done that. Like that have literally.
I've done it.
Yeah.
I closed my first shop when I went through a divorce. A lot of people are like, oh, man, I didn't run away. I went through a divorce. I was doing everything myself. I was paying $18,000 a month on a shop. I called every customer. I said, hey, man, look, I'm going to close it. I can't do this. I'm dealing with a lot of personal stuff. Come get your car. Whatever you owe me, don't worry about it. Let's call it even. And everybody, they come got their stuff. I finished most of them, but they come got their stuff, and I closed it down because I knew at that point I couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
It would have turned into a rob Peter to pay Paul, and I didn't want to be that guy. I didn't want to do that. But a lot of these shops, they got that pride, and they can't do it, you know?
People say how expensive we are, but my insurance on the building's $40,000 a year. That's my garage keepers, whatever. Then I have insurance on the building, that's another $10,000 a year. Then I have my, franchise tax, 1% of, everything. It doesn't matter, it's my gross. It doesn't matter if I had a net loss that year or whatever. I owe 1%. Last year I think we did like fucking almost $3 million in sales, and I owed $30,000 to fucking Austin for fucking franchise tax. Like,
yep.
You start adding up all this little stuff, and it's like, your bottom dollar at the end of the day. If you look at $3 million is really not that much. It's people say, oh, 250,000 for a 2,000 horsepower Viper. That's insane. Where does all that money go?
And you made 20.
Yeah, a little bit.
I know.
We make more money. Our margin is better on a stock motor bolt-on car than it is on a big power car.
Well, and the time it takes to do these builds, that's what people don't factor in. But the other thing is, if you think about it, remember when map pricing was a thing and they enforced it?
Yeah, now it's...
And now everybody from their garage could sell you the part, and they're like, oh, I'll give you the part plus $25. Be my boy,
Mm-hmm.
It killed it.
Yep.
Because that's where we made our money as well. The map pricing. This is what it costs. We make this much. This was all factored in when we were doing a build. Now you can't do that because they're like, well, I'm going to go on the internet and buy the same part.
I think that's why the packages work so well. This is the package. This is the money. Like, this is what horsepower do you want and what's your budget? That's like usually what I ask a customer at first. And they're like, well, I want 1,500 horsepower and, 40 grand. I'm like, well, you're in like the 800 horsepower fucking realm.
Yeah, about half.
You're in the 800 horsepower realm. Maybe a heading cam. So like, head cam Motec is $35,000, and they're like, what? I don't get where all this money comes in. And like, it's like, dude, what do you think it costs to keep the lights on here? Like, that's,
I always was kind of against the package stuff because I'm always like, man, I want to build a car to what the customer wants. And, I would do that because that's what I liked.
Take what the customer wants out of the equation because like
the shops that did the packages are still here.
Yeah.
I learned that that's just not me.
I know my guys get sick of it, and like that's what kind of why we're branching off a little bit more into like some custom cool projects, is to break the monotony of doing the packages for so many years. But when you have a package and you don't change it, and it's the same thing over and over and over again, the only thing you learn how to do is be more efficient at it. So the more efficient, like, you can charge more money. That's one way to make money, or you become more efficient at it. And when you become more efficient, the money just comes, Like, we had a fab guy here, and kept coming up with these ideas to like change the turbo kits. We should do this, or like he wanted to put a brick inside the billet intake manifold, and I'm like, there's no place for it. Like, and I'm not redesigning.
Where would you go?
Where would you go? Oh, make the. And I said, I would tell him, we have a package. It's done. I don't want to change it. Like, I'm not going to redesign the intake manifold. Just stop talking about it. Like, there's no reason. Like, I'm going to spend tens of thousands of dollars on time, money, whatever, programming, all this shit to try something that may or may not work, that may cause 20 other fucking headaches. And it's just, that's the biggest thing is like, stop trying to reinvent the wheel. Just do what you know works and line it out. That's why all this stuff, you know, every time we deviate from a package, it's a fucking headache, you know? And if you do have the customers that want something crazy, or like that Saline that's behind you guys, like that guy's an awesome customer. He realizes everything's custom. Like there is no like, and
you know, you can't go get parts for this down there at Harry's?
You can get actually head gaskets for it at O'Reilly's.
Can you?
Yeah, it's a small block Ford.
Yeah, it's a Windsor base, but it's aluminum made just for this car, though, isn't it?
No, it's just a dart block Ford heads. Yeah,
that's sick.
It's dry sumped. I mean,
basic bitch.
That car got a Motec, and we turned it on, and the motor was hurt, so it's in the middle of a rebuild now. But like customers like that guy, he owns an incredible car collection, and he's a great customer. He gets it. You know, he understands like everybody. Your time is worth something, you know. I would love to just work on cool projects like that we could bill for every minute that we're in it, you know, because then
there's still a lot of guys like that out there.
There are.
The average customer looks on the internet and thinks, oh, I could do that cheaper. He could do that cheaper.
That's why you just have a package. Like you just give a brief overview of what it is, and this is your horsepower number. And if you don't like it, go somewhere else.
They're super mad when they find out that they went there and they got that discount, and now they got to bring it to you, and then they want a discount from you, and you're like, nah, fam. If anything, I'm going to charge you double.
Yeah, I've had quite a few people that didn't either like the wait time. You know, like I told them, hey, we're 8-9 months out on taking your car in, but if you want to get on the list, like we're going to take a 50% deposit. We're going to start ordering your parts. You know, it does. You're not robbing Peter to pay Paul. It's called cash flow. Like you know, that's most car shop owners aren't good business owners. That's the sad part about stuff. But you know, you have cash flow. It's you have everything you need for your business to keep it going and everything. But yeah, it's I don't know. It eliminates. You buy the parts, you get the cash flow, you get you know, you lock that customer in, and you know that's that. I've had plenty of customers that didn't like that 8-month, 10-month, 6-month lead time. And then, you know, another 2-3 months to build their car. They're like, oh, total of a year.
But then their car ends up going somewhere else.
But then their car ends up going someplace else. Yeah. And it sits there for 2 years and then comes back to me and has to be there for another year. It's funny. You talk to Jason and he's like the nicest, angriest person you've ever met. And he's just so angry because he's been dealing with the same thing for, you know, 30 fucking years. And he's like, and I was talking to him the other day, and he's like, people just don't change. And the problem is people are trying to, like you said, peddle parts, peddle this stuff, this and that, and most of them don't know what the fuck they're doing. You know, most of them
they don't know how to package things. They don't know like what parts go to what. So then by the time they come to me or you or something like that, they've got this conglomeration of shit.
You know,
and you're like, well, that doesn't work with that. Doesn't work with that. Yeah, but they save $1,500. Like maybe
you have a lot of shops today that are just literally parts installers. They don't know how to diagnose wiring issues. They don't know. You know, I'm the first one to say I am terrible at wiring. I can.
That's where I excel. Wiring and diag.
There is nothing about wiring that I enjoy. It's just something I don't like. Can I do it? Yes. Can I diag it? Yes, but not as good as Tim or Jaime. Tim's probably like one of the best wiring guys in the fucking country. I'm so fortunate to have him here. You know, but it's or even Jaime. You know, they were both dealer techs, so they're old.
That's where I come from as a dealer.
Yeah,
I think that's why.
We're me and Tim are 40. Jaime's like 45, but that was back in the day when you actually had to know what you were doing before. Like you had to
Calm down. I'm 35 and
diagnose
I was the
something.
diag tech.
Yeah, you had to actually diagnose stuff and figure stuff out, not just plug in a fucking scan
Edit that
tool.
age out.
You know, plug in a scan tool and it just fucking tell you replace this part or your problems from here to here. It's like, you know, we had to sort like my 300ZX was OBD1. I couldn't fucking pull a check engine light if it wasn't running well. I had
My
to.
Camaro was OBD1. I used to have to pin the, or jump
you
the
used to have to
pins
take this
and check the
little fucking
flashes.
Screwdriver, stick it in the side of the fucking thing, the ECU, turn it back, and it will flash
A code,
a
yeah.
code, you know, and then you had to look how many times it flashed in a sequence to figure that out. And then you actually had to go really figure everything else out on it. Like it's, you know, I don't think a lot of people can do that these days.
One of the first ones in 2013 to jump into the Viper.
I think we were the first people to have an actually fully operating twin turbo car.
What about Hennessy?
Hennessy never had one running.
But Hennessy, I thought Hennessy had a Viper program.
I don't
Did he?
think for Gen 5, but back in the day.
No, back in the day.
Yeah, they did, but I don't think they ever made real power or anything.
Didn't
And
they have
I'll tell you one thing.
Didn't they have some record with it?
No.
Oh. I know they get a lot of hate, and I know there was a lot of crazy stories. But I actually went there a few months back, and to see like their process. I didn't go there for that. I went over there because I bought a supercharger from them. But I talked to some of the guys, and I tuned a car, friends with a guy that was working there, and their process now, I don't know if it's always been that way, is pretty cool. I don't know if you've ever been there or not.
I've been there. The last time I was there was when TX2K was there. I was friends.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, but when I was friends with Kevin from M2K, you know,
Yeah.
he'd show me around this and that, and I
Have you
remember.
ever seen their process on like when they build a new car?
No, I don't.
So
know.
they get it from the dealer.
Yeah.
And then they have a guy go drive it and do a bunch of testing with it. Another guy drive it, test it. Another guy drive it and test it. If there's any issues, it goes back to the dealer for warranty. Then they build it, and then they have 3 more people go through. I mean, what shops do that? Most of these shops, sadly, they don't even go drive the damn car.
I'll tell you one thing.
So I was very impressed with that.
I hate driving customer cars on the street for 2 reasons. Like Austin traffic is just terrible.
California.
The liability, like, you know, we used to go out on the highway and make me and Colin like 180, 200 mile an hour fucking hits all the time. I'm sure there's tons of videos out there people have seen, but it's like, it is, especially after I had my wreck, you know, I'm like,
Yeah.
I do not want to drive these packages are so lined out. Like what I do is I drive them around the fucking neighborhood here just to make sure drivability is good.
Well, you know, they have their own test track. So they'll actually, you know, in the new car, after the break-in mileage, whatever, they'll make passes. And then they'll drive it around this course. I just thought it was really cool because
that is cool
that's
when you have the
some,
time and the manpower for it.
right,
You know?
when you got money. So I get it, you know. But I just thought that was really cool because a lot of people hate on Hennessy.
I think over the years it's been lined out really heavily. You know, their marketing is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
They have a marketing team that, you know, is great. Whether their product's great or not, I have no idea.
I saw a lot of the install and, you know, the way they do things and the OEM look. And I'm not here trying to jerk off Hennessy, but a lot of people,
there's a huge market for that people
a lot of people
want
won't
that
take the
name.
time to go do that. They're like, oh, well, their cars aren't fast. I said, yeah, well, their cars come with a warranty.
Yeah.
They make X amount of power. They warranty it. When you pop the hood, it looks OEM.
It looks OEM.
And you
get
know that
floor mats
somebody
say
drove it
Hennessy,
and
whatever
made sure
on
it was
and,
good.
You know, there's a lot.
It's a package. And look where they're at. They're still here.
Yeah.
They're
Real
in dealerships.
Yeah.
So, and they make that Venom. I don't know if you ever seen one of those, that F5
I've seen
up
it.
close.
Yeah,
It's all carbon. The interior's carbon.
it's based off of McLaren, isn't it?
No, the F5 is a whole new chassis.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the original one was based off of Lotus.
Oh,
and it was
maybe that's what I'm
stretched.
thinking.
But the F5 is their own carbon monocoque, because my shop in Houston before was next to Expel. And they would come in and they expel, clear brought the entire car, interior, exterior, the whole deal. But like, it's really cool, you know, to see that. But it all kind of goes back to the package thing. You know, I thought packages were stupid, and I don't have a shop. You know.
So, We were the first ones to have a fully running and functioning Gen 5 twin turbo car. So we tried doing it on HP tuners, and then obviously that failed miserably. And what we did was we sent the orange car to Motec, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we can do this in 2 weeks, no problem." Like all the CAN development, everything. Like 6 months later, they're like, "Yeah, it's finally ready. Come pick it up." It didn't have like the O2 sensors in it. Like the package wasn't finished. And I think this is when Delgado was trying to do the Pro EFI one. So we were trying to go back and forth. But I think the only thing over the next few months they didn't do is get the slip light off. And I think Delgado had the same issue. And finally, there was just a bunch of stuff in the firmware that Colin didn't like. And he said, "I'm going to build my own firmware." And I'm like, Colin,
Calm down, bud.
You calm down. You are not going to reverse engineer CAN and do all this stuff and this and that motherfucker sat right here for 6 weeks and wrote his first package. He'd come, so he works at that time he was working for Micron. Now he works for Apple, but he would go to his job at Micron, come here, and literally be here all night by himself, this, that, blah, blah. And then I'd get text messages, "Look what I got the gauges to do," and this and that. And he wrote something in Python that stole the CAN and wrote his first firmware in 6 weeks. And then it worked. Everything had zero issues, no problems. All the lights on the dash were off. Then we did a Gen 4. And then we did a CTSV, full standalone Motec. He was working on a McLaren one for a while, and I think that market's just... Those cars are too finicky to modify. They need to just be downpipes and tuned and left alone.
Because their doors just open and randomly go down the interstate and stuff.
Or do they? I know the windshields crack all the time, and just they have a bunch.
I've got a buddy who's his door just opens while he's cruising down the interstate. Just he's like, I'm like, "What did you just do?" He's like, "The door just opened." I'm like, "Did you open it?" He goes, "No, it does that." What?
I think to answer your question, though, RSI was the first people to have a Gen 5 running, and they put it on a Pectel, but I think they were having a lot of... I think they were trying to piggyback it, not do a full standalone, and the gauges didn't work or something, but we were definitely the first to have a Gen 5 turbo car running. And then I think that following year, Nth Moto... It was like late 2015, early 2016, Nth Moto came out with that blue car, Danny Fox's car. And we were doing stock motor bolt-on cars at that time, and they just came straight out. Built motor, 1500 wheel, they do a really good job on stuff. So it was a fast car, went 206 and a half mile, I believe, Jeez. 205, something like that. So yeah, that kind of started the whole, and then the Viper stuff just started really taking off.
When you had dealt with the HP tuners, because that's something I deal with HP tuners daily, and when I went to do the 2014 that I had asked you about, and to see the maybe 40 something PIDs that they give you, did you reach out to them and
we tried, yeah, and they're like, their response was, "We give you the tool, you need to learn how to use it."
Well, so I started looking on the forum pages and stuff, and you can see where they were talking about the different things that they were going to have for the throttle learn. What a nightmare.
Yeah.
That they were going to put every time once you flash the Viper, you have to have a scan tool, hook up, link in, relearn the throttle, sometimes 2 to 3 times before it idles properly again. Yeah. Well, in most of HP Tuner's software for all of the other vehicles, it's in the scanner. But in the Viper, they were like, "Oh, it's coming, but it never."
No,
I assume it never came because it wasn't in the one I had.
We got one. We did one for a guy, Will Mills, up in Dallas, and we got it to run like 80%. James Carter did it, but every once in a blue moon, it was like when you let off the throttle or like you just did something transient. It didn't like it would kick it in limp mode.
Put all those lights up. Yeah, I saw that a few times. I was like, "Oh, don't do that."
On the dynos, they would make power, and like I think that was another problem. You had a lot of shops that would pop up out of nowhere because they saw what me and Nth Moto were charging for these things, and they're like, "Oh, there's got to be 100% profit in them, and it's going to be 2 little pipes with turbos, and we could tune it on HP, and they quickly learn like you can't do it, but like on the dyno, they'll work fine, right? On HP tuners, right? You can get.
Do you think that HP tuners is having an issue like maybe the computer wasn't advanced enough for the engine?
I think the computer's not advanced
because no
enough.
way they put all that time in there and charge that many credits for something.
I don't think what they had was enough interest to continue doing development on it.
Being it's such a limited platform.
Yeah, at some point in time, like, you know, what's a credit for fucking a Corvette? $100?
Yep.
Yeah, so like
But on a Viper, it's $1,000.
$1,000 for a set of credits. Yeah.
Right. And then you literally, if you were trying to do it the correct way, you cannot correctly tune a Viper on HP tuners. I don't care who you are.
like-
you're making it work. And I spent 3 days making it work to the best of what it was going to do. And it ran good. It runs good. It makes good power. It doesn't blow the
But
black
it's not
smoke
right.
everywhere. But I know I wouldn't do that to a car that I can actually tune properly. I wasn't happy with it.
No, you just
So-
put a Motec on it.
Right.
Put a Motec on. Everybody's like,
Which he did tell me to do, but they're just not there yet. That was his first answer. Did you put a Motec on it? Well, no. He's like, do that. I'm like, come on.
take the stock ECU and throw it in the trash.
But he was nice enough to at least help me out and say, hey, you know, I run this timing, I run this air fuel. This is what we found to be safe. And that's what I targeted. And I was like, when you do your next round of mods, Motec, send it to Calvo, get it done. Something I found interesting, though, not to go too far off, when I asked about a turbo kit, he said, you know, we don't just send the turbo kits out because of variances in the frame. And I was like, man, after looking at the frame, it's kind of crazy how the frame's designed on that car. It makes sense, but I assume that's why people don't do a lot of Viper turbo kits. Just
the mail order turbo kits, it's impossible to do because, like, I've had them where like the intercooler tabs that bolt to the front frame rails. One frame rail will be an inch shorter than the other. You know,
is that much variance?
Yeah.
Why is that?
They're hand built.
Damn.
Are they hand built?
Yeah, they're hand built.
The frame?
Yeah, I'll go look at that frame that I have on the Dragon Drive car. It's literally like MIG welded.
When we film the shop tour, make sure that you get that because
it's pretty crazy. Like they're hand built by like
But a lot of people don't know that. I thought that was really cool.
The
when I first saw the frame,
shimmed.
I was like, this looks like a proper kit car.
Yeah, no, there's shims all over them too. Like to shim like the front bumper and stuff to make the body lines. Like one of the biggest complaints everybody has with them is like, hey, when you take my car apart and put it back together, can you fix the body lines? And some of them you just can't fix. Like
Like a Tesla.
we spend, so like once the car gets off the dyno, it doesn't have side sills, hood, bumper, usually a rear bumper on it, right? We'll spend a solid day putting all that stuff on it and aligning the bumpers.
Jeez.
You know, that should be something like you do that in a Porsche, it's like a 3-hour deal, you know, but you'll spend a day and a half. You'll have to like shim the latch
half the car is the hood. Half the car is the hood.
Half the car is the hood, but yeah, if you look like this body line here, you know, this sits a little bit more in, or if I loosen that bolt there, I can flush that up there.
Yeah.
Just all the little things. You know, because there's like you take a European car apart. I don't know about the Chevy stuff, but like, you know, you take a
Let's
European.
not go there.
Huh?
Let's not go there.
Yeah, you take like a BMW apart, right? The bumper like comes off, but it like has clips all around it. Like my
GM has them. They're just broken.
Oh yeah, so like Porsche,
The
like you take the
broken
back
ones?
bumper
Yeah.
off a Porsche, like you can put it back on with not a single bolt, and it looks flush. Like you know, you could. I wouldn't suggest
you could do that
driving it, but like
once, maybe twice on a Corvette,
yeah.
And they're
So
all
like
broken.
and then they're all broken.
yeah, no, you the Viper doesn't have any clips. You just put it on. You know, and then take your best educated. Like there's, I don't know, like 8 bolts across here, that they're slotted, so you can like move this up and down to get this body line better.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean,
Who would've
I
thought?
guess, like I said, it's a run of what 25,000 total cars.
From like
So,
92, yeah, I
At
think
25 years, 25,000, I think is what I read.
something like that. I know, like the Gen 5s, I think there were only 23 or 2,400 built total.
And half of them are here.
Yeah, half of them. I mean, we're on turbo car 180 something.
Jesus.
So-
Damn.
There's 180 of those Slayers running around.
Yeah, and then there's a bunch of head and cam cars. I think it's almost 10% of all Gen 5 Vipers have been through here. That's pretty.
That's a pretty cool thing. to
Yeah,
think
that's a
about.
pretty cool. Actually, James Carger was the one that said that the other day. I think him and somebody else were on a Facebook comment asking about how many Vipers were there and this and that, and how many of you turboed, and we've definitely had few hundred cars come through here.
So the Gen 3 car was the guinea pig
Car. It was
the
a Gen 2 car. Yeah, it was a Gen 2. I believe it was like a charcoal with like white stripes or something. It was a dark color with like lighter stripes. And yeah, that car kind of was the one that started it all. Like I worked on a few of them when I was at Boostlogic, and I never thought they were that cool or anything. A lot of them were, I hate to say it, like when you see a really nice clean Gen 2 car now, you like really appreciate it. There's a local guy that has one. He bought it brand new in 97. And we service it and stuff for him. And man, you get in that car and you're like, man, it's a nice car. But then you get into like other cars, like Hani's from Texas Tire, that is a just fucking like it overheats. It's got all sorts of. It's been through a bunch of shops. Everything rattles in it. I love Hani, by the way, but his cars are all pieces of junk.
Then we take a piece of junk, we try to make it a little less of a piece
There's
of junk.
no turning those into. All of his cars need to just be put at the bottom of the ocean.
Jesus. That's a 3?
That's a 3, yeah. So that's a 4. So
That's a.
that a 2?
What is that, 2?
No, that's a Gen 3, Gen 3, Gen 4.
Oh, that's Gen 3 too.
Yeah, so the only difference between the Gen 3s and the Gen 4s, if you look at the way the vents face back on the Gen 3, the Gen
Right.
4 have bigger vents. And the Gen 4s had TR6060s. They had a early, what like was the predecessor to that motor was the Gen 5. It was basically a Gen 5 engine with Hyper Eutechnic pistons in it, but it had forged rods, forged crank.
The Gen 5 has like a much better cylinder head though, right?
No, the cylinder heads are the same on Gen 4, Gen 5.
Okay.
The Gen
But that was the
3s
big. So that was the big gain in Gen 4.
Yeah, the
was the
Gen
head.
3s were like the bastard childs that like
Because
had
Dodge
like,
loves those little bitty ports.
Yeah,
Yeah. You ever see the truck headers and stuff, and they're just like,
they're tiny. Yeah. Ours, we just did a bunch of testing actually. Now that I'm in the machine shop a lot, I'm having more time with the owner over there to learn, right, and just to do more cool shit. And he's a really good machinist, tinkerer, And we've been doing like cylinder head testing, and we took another company's. It came through here, and I wound up having a set of another company cylinder heads. So we checked their cylinder heads. We checked these aftermarket castings that are called strikers that were like the shit, back in the day. And we learned a bunch. It was really cool on like, seeing all the different lifts and stuff. But I think like our heads, I want to say they flow like 350 or 360 at 600 lift. So it's not.
it's not bad.
No, it's not bad. It's not
I
great.
mean, it's LS6. So that's a 2001 LS motor.
So,
But you have more ports.
we have more ports and bigger pistons, and I mean, whatever it is, they work really
Oh, yeah.
well.
Did you test the flow between the Gen 3 and Gen 4?
Oh, it's terrible. Like, yeah,
that bad?
Yeah, it's terrible. I didn't. They're
Not that the
junk.
camera can see, but for my own curiosity. Is it just because it's convertible? That one looks like that, and that one has the
Yes,
cool
correct.
light covers,
Oh, yeah.
like how it
Yep,
extends past
that's
the light.
exactly what it is.
That looks so much cooler.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
the convertibles look
a
pretty.
night and day difference.
Yeah,
You know what it kind of looks like? Like a Prowler. And not to knock the Prowler, because I would totally rock one. I'd pull that piece of crap motor out of it.
but no, the convertibles or never. There's actually a few Gen 5 Targas. Prefix who did all the bodies for the Gen 5s. They built, I think there's like 5 or 6 of them. They're called Medusas.
Is that with the removable whole hardtop?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay. I've seen that.
It's a Targa, like a Supra Targa.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking I've seen one that I think it was a convertible that they put like a whole
this
hard
is
shell.
for the Gen 5s. Yeah, this is a Gen
okay.
5 car. Like it's just kind of, it's like what they did with the 4 GTs, the GTX ones or whatever they're called. Same thing. Like they just basically cut it off and made some moldings and stuff.
Did Gen 5 come in convertible?
No.
Thank God.
No, there's the. That's why it was so.
It's like
cool.
they realized it, kind of like when the C7 ZR1 realized that an automatic was the better way to go.
Yeah, but the manual C701s are pretty fucking fun.
Yeah.
That's what SW said. That's his favorite car to drive.
I like going fast.
So,
But I think the first one I ever drove was a yellow Gen 1. That I went to school with this guy, and this is how he made some money. He would go online and pretend he was a girl and talk to guys to get money out of them.
What the hell?
Not going to mention his name. He made money. He bought a Gen 1 Viper, fresh out of high school. I mean, that was big. I'm not going to say what year that was, but that was big, And he's like, "Man, you want to drive it?" I'm like, "Yeah, let me try this thing out."
2008. If you're,
It felt like, stop it. Yeah, let's go with that.
no, it might be
But
07.
the best way I could relate to it was because it had nothing control.
No.
It felt like a bathtub with wheels on it.
Yeah. Have you ever seen the
That's
bump
about-
stops on one of those?
No.
It's a square tube welded with a piece of rubber on the top. So when you bottom the suspension out, it just hits it.
I could tell you it was that car I did relate to. That thing was the most violent, but you felt it. So you knew what the car was going to
It's
do
nostalgic.
for the most part.
We had one in here where they have terrible head gasket issues, the Gen 1s, and we did a set of head gaskets on one. And it was actually a really clean car. This is awesome. It doesn't have windows. It doesn't have a roof. It doesn't have air conditioning. Those were, like, they didn't come with windows.
Damn.
Yeah, this thing was just basic.
Yeah.
But it was basically badass.
Yeah, it was fun as shit.
Remember, 500 horsepower back then was really fast.
Yeah.
And it was just
They
so...
make, I think, like 400 wheel.
Yeah,
top.
it was just so raw, and just that car felt amazing, scary, but amazing.
Yeah, I can't believe your experience with an ACR.
I was pretty upset about it.
That's
I may try to drive a different one later, but I didn't like it. I don't know, and it's got to be an alignment thing.
yeah.
I'll make sure we go. I'll have them check that because it just didn't feel good. It didn't feel planted. I didn't feel secure.
That
in
or
it.
they come with factory Bilsteins that are like compression and dampening, like
Yeah, I
20
saw that.
waves.
They got the reservoir and everything.
The
for 'em.
reservoir with the knobs, and fucking some people just start clicking those things, not knowing what they're doing.
Well, a lot of people have touched this car over time. That's why we were fixing it. Somebody had tried to tune it, and it looked like a diesel. It would literally just roll cold as soon as he started driving it.
Damn.
It was bad. The whole side of the car was black. But also the O2 sensors, they had extensions on them,
Yeah, and those
but they didn't
burn up.
need them. It didn't need the extensions. I guess because I was able to just stretch it, make it hook up, but deleted the extension because they had gotten wet because it rains a lot. And they had a sleeve over it, and it was holding the water
What people
in.
do is they zip tie 'em to those little 3
That's
holes
what I
in the
did.
bottom of the thing, and fucking they usually melt right there.
I did it, and they had like a piece of shielding,
Mm-hmm.
and we just put that over it, and it's been good. But what it was is they had put a heat sleeve over the extension.
Yeah, people don't
and
realize
the water
it gets
would get in
hotter,
there.
but it gets hotter inside the sleeve.
Well, that's what I tell people on spark plug wires, the MSDs.
Yeah.
They'll put sleeves on them. I'm like, so basically you're just baking the wire. But this one, it was holding the water in, and it burned the O2s out. What's crazy is that I don't know how the Gen 5s. Well, no, it was a Gen 5. The tuning stuff acts like it's a wideband car, commanded air fuel and all that, instead of like everything like a regular O2 sensor. They have commanded AFR.
Are the GMs narrowband or widebands?
Don't start with me on that.
I don't know.
They're narrowband
So like
all the way to the C8.
so
But every piece of shit 6-cylinder and 4-cylinder had wide bands.
so I thought a while
Oh,
ago a local guy here, we pinned
Very sensitive subject there.
a wideband to his HP tuner dongle. But
Yeah.
I think that's just for data logging.
Yeah, because they don't have them factored.
So they have no O2 feedback or anything like that.
They have O2 sensors, but not at wide open.
Okay, so like no closed loop or anything.
Nope.
Okay,
Crap.
that sucks.
But all their crappy 4 cylinders and 6 cylinders, except for the performance 6 cylinders, they didn't get wide bands either. But Mustangs have had it since 2010,
Every
2011.
Japanese and European car.
Everyone has it, and it makes it so much easier.
Yeah.
But it's just weird because this car, it in the tune in our 12 parameters we get, it uses like fuel air ratio, kind of like the Hellcats.
No,
But they don't have wideband because I was sure it had a wideband.
no, the
And it
narrow
doesn't.
bands. Yeah,
But then again, it's very primitive, and I kind of like that too.
they're awesome cars. They really are. This one's not bad. It makes I think like 2,000 wheel.
Damn.
That's it. That's all. It looks just regular
Street car. Street car.
It's got a big wang on it though.
A
It's got a
what?
cage that you can't see either.
Big wang.
A wang?
Yeah. Yeah, that was crazy. The cage. You can't even tell it's got a
Yeah,
cage
that's
in
wild.
it.
Yeah, people wonder why we charge 27 grand for those, and it's like
Worth it.
Yeah, you disassemble the whole fucking car. The roofs come off, everything to weld it all up.
That roof comes off.
You got to take the quarter panels and everything off, but yeah, just on bolts.
Damn.
Wow.
How do you think you weld the top of the cage?
That's what I was wondering. You didn't hear me say that? I'm like, how the heck did he weld
Take the
this?
roof off.
And I looked, I fingered it. It was welded all the way. I was like, man, that's kind of crazy. So on the Gen 5s, we're going to have to go here. The wang. What's the difference in the wings they come with?
So-
Do they actually help? What do they
you
do?
have like the wicker bill style, which is everybody calls it the TA wing. It's actually the advanced Aero wing is the proper term.
The TA had that on it.
The TA had it stock, and that's why I kind of got that name. But like, it was an option on the GTSs. It was an option on the base model SRTs as an upgrade. But yeah, its proper name is advanced Aero. It's just that little wicker bill, carbon wicker bill. Then you had in 2015, they had the TA 2.0s, which had a deck style wing. And then in 2016, they had the ACR, which was a little bit bigger than that. And then the ACR Extreme, which is that thing, which I think produces, I'm pretty sure, unless there's something new now, but as of a few years ago, that had the most downforce on any production car ever built.
Do you know about how much that is, or?
Yeah, we have at the wind tunnel, we did some testing at 220 miles an hour. It produces 3,200 pounds of downforce.
3,200?
Yeah.
Damn.
So I think at like 150 or 170 or something, it's like 1,800 pounds.
Is there bracing under the deck lid?
Oh yeah.
So, is that like a trunk?
Yeah, it's a trunk. It opens up.
Everybody's gonna make fun of me for my Viper lack of knowledge.
Yeah, no, it
But-
opens up. The rear windows are actually different on the ACRs than the other ones.
So this is an ACR.
This is a real ACR. Yeah.
Okay. So the big bracketry that you have there, does it continue down?
No, it rests. So inside the trunk, there's additional bracing, and then basically it's just 4 screws that holds it in place. And then on the sides, where the trunk meets the quarter panel, there's like little bump stops that are rubber.
Have you ever seen any issues with that?
No, we did some testing for a company that was making a replica wing. Those things are like 18 grand from Dodge.
Wow.
Yeah, this front piece under here goes back to where like the back of the wheel is.
It's
It goes
just
all the way
flat
across.
and it has the grooves, right?
It's $12,000 from Dodge. So, but yeah, so a company made a replica wing and they sent us one to test. And they manufacture airplane parts, carbon airplane parts. Great company. Can't say anything bad, but they said, hey, test this for us. And I did a 220 pass in a car with it on, and the end plates were touching the quarter panel. Folded it in half.
I've seen on the C701, they make the plastic wing.
Okay.
I forget who makes it, but they make a plastic version. It feels decently stiff,
And then
but you start going down the interstate and it starts doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like a bird. And then I know they made a carbon one, and they're starting to crack because I don't think they realize the
nobody
amount of
nobody
downforce that thing really
understands, like,
makes.
it's funny, you have a lot of these shops that talk about Aero and wings and all this theoretical shit. Like, we've taken one of these cars to the wind tunnel 3-4 times and, you know, changed minor stuff that made huge differences. You know, even just little wicker bills.
Even the active Aero wing.
The active Aero wing we tested. Yeah, it's pretty cool to see all the stuff that you do or what doesn't work. You know, we thought stuff would make huge differences and it didn't do anything. You know, so it was a really cool experience that Vance actually paid for all that to happen, and we got to learn a bunch. I got to learn a bunch about the way air works. So I think a lot better than most people have an understanding for. But yeah, it's, you know, they're definitely big wings.
Yeah.
Can you give us an explanation of how it works? How the air flows?
Yeah. So basically, I know somebody said the other day, like, wings have like a high pressure zone underneath them or something. I don't really understand that, maybe. But yeah, basically air goes over the car, pushes down the back of the car. This usually has a front splitter, and you want the air to move around the car. You don't want it to come up over it. So with the splitter and the canards, it's venting all of it to go around instead of underneath or on top of it.
So that's what canards are used for.
Canards are used to get the air out of it, but it also helps to keep the front end planted. That's why if you look at like a lot of the road race cars, they have those extended front splitters.
Yeah.
They're trying to they don't want the air to go underneath the car. It's basically get it around it and get it to go away from it, or try to get it run down the side of it.
So on that wing in particular, say you pitch it this way or this way, would it work like an air brake basically?
So I think there's like 6 positions on it. I'll double check. But when you have it all the way down, like especially on a road course, yeah, like in the back straight at Kodo, like I'll lose like 3 to 4 mile an hour in a stock car by changing it. And you can also, when you let off, like you can just let off and the thing will go, like
Damn.
You notice it drastically versus like even my GT3 RS that has a pretty big wing. It doesn't feel like this.
Yeah. I wonder how that compares to the C7ZR1, just because it's got the big wing too, but it's got a bracing so you got the struts that go down, but it's got a whole cage that goes all the way down the back in the bumper and bolts in multiple spots.
This doesn't, and it doesn't. I've never seen any of the OEM ones have any issues.
Yeah. Like I said, we talked about before, we're seeing on a pretty moderately fast car, 11 mile an hour in the half mile, 7-ish in the quarter mile loss just by having the wing on, not having the wing.
So what we've noticed is what you lose on the top with the wing, you gain on the bottom from traction.
I was going to say, we run similar ET.
Yeah. So like at a half mile, both cars will be kind of within 2 mile an hour of themselves. You know, that could be driver difference. Like we learned that at Texas Invitational 2017 when we brought Colin's dad's car out and we had Brian Pike's car there. Exact same packages within 20 wheel of each other on the dyno. Not a big deal. And they ET'd the same. I'm sorry, they mile an hour the same. There was no ET. They mile an hour the same. And what we learned was in roll racing, the ACR would just fucking walk away from everything, you know, but it would jump out immediately and then cars would slowly catch up.
So you got 60 to 130, because I know how much you love that, and you love draggies. They're your favorite. You have a bunch of them in the 2s, which, or if not, at least some in the 2s.
Yeah, we have quite a few, yeah.
In the C7, I mean, just pushing even a low 3 is insane, just trying to make them work. So what is the difference?
This car, I sent it to the customer. We never made any adjustments, anything. And
is this factory suspension? Obviously,
this has not our Penske setup on it. This has a company called DSC. It's tractive suspension. It's CAN interfaced, and it has its own brain that literally will revalve as you drive it.
That's wild.
It works pretty well. It was cool. I don't think there's anything as good as a like properly valved Penske, and sprung Penske. What I'm learning also with some other, like through Billy Stocklin and Al, is you can either get a car to drive really nice and sort of hook, or you can get a car to really hook up well on the street, but it's not going to drive nice. What our whole bread and butter has been getting street cars to do well, but I think in the next like 6 months, you're going to start seeing some really, really fast 60 to 130s coming out of here.
Really?
Can you speak on like how you were able to make a 2-wheel drive car hook enough to do that?
It's a lot of suspension, a lot of tweaking. Collins firmware is a big part of it. Collins firmware is the only one that has torque management. So like me and the owner of the car, the one that was trying to get that draggy record, we would literally every night, and he had a 10.5 Outlaw car, X3 Lambo. He was a driver. He understood the cars really well. And every night he would literally turn out of his house, about to get on the highway, get out of the car, check his tire pressure, get on the highway. As he's getting on the highway, he would just turn traction control off, haze the tires up, and go to the same spot. He would see what the DA is that night, whether to go in a aught or do anything, and he would hit it in the same spot every night, turn around, hit it in the other spot, come home, read his plugs, call me, I'd pull the log, and we would make, little changes, and then the car just consistently was going 284, 286, 288, 284, 60 to 130, and it was always like 206, 208, 205, 100 to 150.
That's crazy.
So
basically, the traction control was working real hard at the 60 to 80-ish range.
It barely touched traction control. So like
now, was that an ACR wing car?
Yeah, ACR car, ton of suspension. Okay. Like a lot of people don't realize, like if you do bushings, Penske's, the labor, a proper alignment, and really get into all the little stuff, it's $30,000 in suspension. Most people hear $30,000 for suspension, they're like, huh? But like these cars drive really smooth on the street. They hook really well, and it's any car. I think if you just properly set up, coilover, valve properly with the right springs and everything, should drive smooth.
Have you ever driven a 6-gen ZL11 LE?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Probably the most brutal car on the street. But on a road course, it's an animal.
Yeah.
And I always thought it was weird that people would build those as like a roll race car. But now thinking of this, I'm like, maybe they're accidentally onto something and they don't. I'm sure they don't realize they buy it because it looks.
I mean, we were the first people to turbo an ACR. It was a white one. It's a guy. His name's Doug. He still has it to this day. He bought it brand new. He lives in Indiana. And he had it sent from the factory to Benny Boyd, and I picked it up from him. He never even got to see the car except for the day he came and picked it up. We put 100 miles. Colin put the first 100 miles on the car.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if maybe that's something that we're not really thinking about, because the Camaros are already, I don't know what it is, the little floppy suspension in the back or what the issue is, but they're scary because they do this when you floor them until you get the alignment and everything fixed. But the ZL11 LE comes with a coilover setup, factory. But when you drive down the road, I'm telling you, it will beat you to death.
We started learning a lot on like bump steer, caster, how like huge that is and when we first started messing with all that stuff, AJ Peterson was helping us and he taught me a bunch of stuff. If you don't know, you don't know, the bump steer is so important, and most people don't understand.
How are you adjusting that, though?
You have to have it go through its cycle. So you got to pull the coilover out, or you put a D-hook in the ground, and you strap have a strap that goes to the ground, and you watch what the toe and what the camber's doing, and then you'll eventually, after you do enough of them, you kind of know where to set the bump steer. Bump steer in the front is super important because that will make the car sway around.
Right.
We had a car, it was in an accident, and the owner took it all apart, put a frame in it, put it back. You can buy the frames from Dodge for like $14,000. So put a frame in it, put the whole car back together, sent it here. We did coilovers on it. We did some other stuff, and I forget what it was. I took it out, and I never really railed on it that hard. I gave it back to him, and he was like, "Hey, man, this thing just doesn't feel right." And I'm like, "Huh, okay, like, whatever." He sent it back for something, and we looked at it, and I'm like, "Man, I see what he says. It kind of does this wandering thing, right?"
Crab walks. It crab walks.
Well, it was under acceleration. It'd go like, and you'd notice it, like you'd be going like this, and none of the other cars do that. And it wasn't like a violent this. It was just kind of swaying back.
That's
and
what
forth.
the ZL1 does.
Yeah.
It just under power, it'll do like this, but it can get a little sketchy.
We looked for everything, and what it wound up being was the steering. He reused the steering rack, and the steering rack tabs were slightly twisted like this. So when he put them on, and they used an impact gun to just compress the bushing, it actually cocked the steering rack ever so slightly. So even though your toe side to side was good and everything on paper was great, we didn't check the bump steer. So when it was moving, you had one side that was towing more than the other.
Damn.
Because
And
the
I got
rack,
so much stuff to check now.
yeah, the rack physically wasn't centered right. So when you'd go this way and that way, everything seemed the same because you would even it out. But as, you got to think of if the rack comes across here and it's like this and you get the toe set right, the geometry here is different. So as you're going through the whole range of motion,
Right.
your one tire's towing more than the other.
Yep.
And it caused it to just wander. Especially you have something that's transferring all the weight to the back, you're unloading that front, and then once that weight's done transferring, it's coming back down. So it just had two motions that it went through. It came up, planted, and then came back down. And as it's coming back down, you have maybe one tire towing 2 degrees, and the other one, I'm using arbitrary numbers here, but
But it makes, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not as simple as set it at 0 and run it.
no, like same thing with caster. Like most people don't even have the proper tools to check caster. Caster is where
Or the adjustments.
well that, but even how to check it. Like you can't check rear caster on an alignment rack.
Rear caster?
Yeah, rear caster. Like what happens if you might have your camber set with your control arms, right? You might have toe set with your tension rods. But what happens if one tire is a little bit more forwards because of the adjustment? That's your caster. So now you have one, it might be a millimeter or two, but it makes a huge difference. Like think about when you're trying to go in a straight line, if one tire's here and it's going and you're towing, but one tire.
So on a CTSV, I've seen that where it's closer on one side to the fender than the other side. Enough that it'll touch the paint, but on this side you can put your finger.
Yeah, that's nobody checked the caster on it. So like think
I've never
about
even
this.
thought about it, honestly.
So like, you set, I'm going to use somewhat arbitrary numbers here. Like let's say you set 0.5 degrees positive camber on a rear-wheel drive car, right? And then like you're, a half a degree to 1 degree towed in. So if you're like this, as that car is squatting, you're bringing, negative camber into it, right? Or your goal on a straight line car is probably to hit 0 camber on full squat, right? But as that's happening, you're having, as you're going, through the range of motion in the bump stop or the bump steer it's going to keep toe out, right? Well, what happens if it's towing out like
It starts pulling around.
what happens if your bump steer on one side isn't the same as your other? So now you have one side in one wheel that could be slightly in front of it towing this way. A lot of shit a lot of people don't know about.
Right. And that's something I didn't even really think. I just bring mine to the alignment guy and I'm like, hook it up. And it does look better, but
Yeah, once you start actually like diving deep down that rabbit hole, you're like, oh my God, there's so much other shit to this than.
well, something I thought was really kind of cool and I had learned on mine as well was tires for roll racing versus the track. Because I went all the way down 15s like everybody does. Terrible. And people are like, oh, my 15s work great. I'm like, yeah, but your car's a lot slower. Once you start making, and again, our definition of big power is different. Once you start making over 1,000 wheel, I'd say on a Corvette, if you're doing a 15, for some reason, they don't want to hook at all. I went back to an 18. dead hooks, 360, no problem. I couldn't even get out the 4s on a 15.
What do they run on the Vipers?
345 35 18s.
Wait, say it again?
A 345 35
It's
18.
the same tire I run.
Mickey Thompson or
I have an RR
yeah,
now.
that's the best street tire. So what we learned,
I had the R888,
Yeah.
and I thought my diff was bad. Because that thing sounds like a bad diff.
oh yeah, the whine.
horrible.
Oh yeah. So you gotta hear them on a dyno when you let off. They're like, me.
Yeah. In Puerto Rico, they all were running the R888s.
Yeah.
And man, they did good. And I thought it was weird because at the half mile, which you've been there, it's a dusty runway.
Yeah.
So if you're getting down it, you're getting down it. And those tires work.
So-
put radials on, it wouldn't work.
Nope. So what we learned on the dyno jet is
Tell us the secret.
the R888 fucking worked better than anything to hook on it. So we would like a 19-inch R888 hook 2,000, 2,400 wheel on our.
Yeah.
So what we would also do is put the wheel in front of the roller, almost touching the ground.
I learned that.
And then you ratchet strap it
Yeah,
back.
if
So
the
what you're
roller's
doing
here
is, yeah,
and the front's here, you're basically coming down on the face as hard as you can.
yeah, you're like you put the wheel like fucking 1 inch from the fucking
We modified
ground.
the front
Oh, did
of
you?
ours. Yeah, where it has the plate across it. We cut it and bent the plate down because, and this is only for 1,000 horsepower cars, but we thought at first, this was 2014-ish, we'd go on the back of the roller thinking it'll climb up the roller.
No, it just
but
blows
it doesn't,
it off.
it just spins.
Yeah. When you put it on the front of the roller and you strap the car back, you're taking the tire and putting it on the face of the roller. So as you got to think of a circle, right? So if you're at the cusp of the circle and you're trying to go down, the only thing and the car can't go forward because of the strap in the back. The only thing you're doing is pushing that tire into a less of a space.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's on a 19-inch R888. There's no sidewall, so it just grips. I mean, you tread the tires up, but
What I've tried the difference, and I'm talking, I went through a pile of tires because I was just tired of listening to everybody and not actually just testing it. But the ET Street R, the ET Street SS,
ET Street SS sucks.
the ET Street SS was the best tire.
What?
I went the fastest on an ET Street, a fresh one.
Yeah, once
Like
they
brand new.
Yeah, but like you get 5 passes out of them and they get that feathering and they're done.
ET Street R was the problem. That and what was the other tire? The DBR.
I didn't even know.
Hoosier DBR.
I
It's a
never
drag
tried that.
bracket radial, but it's basically a slick with wires in it. It's a killer tire at the track. I'd call it a sneaky tire. It acts like a slick, but it's a radial. But we'd get the feathering. And then the ET Street R, I'd get the feathering after a few passes. I'd have to pull over, put water down on the ground, do a burnout, clean the tire off. The ET Street SS didn't do it as bad, but that tire lasted me 2 weeks.
Yeah, you would get
But if you want a good draggy time, ET Street SS, you just throw it on there, you get your draggy time.
over
throw them
the
away.
RRs.
Over to ours.
Wow.
No, not the RR.
Yeah.
So this is my progression.
Yeah.
I started with drag radials, and then in the middle of that, I had went out to Puerto Rico for a half mile race, and I'm noticing everybody's running RRs or R888Rs, and I'm like, why? Why would they put a radial on? And just watching the tires pass after pass, they don't ball
Yeah.
up. They don't
Nope.
have that issue, but you did have to put heat in them.
Yes.
That was the only issue. If you
But
didn't do
you
a
can't
burnout,
put too
you
much heat
struggle.
in them. If you put too much heat
Why
in
did
them,
we
they
just
get-
clean them off as soon as the smokes get out of it?
Yep.
And boy, that tire will lay down. So I put it on my car now, and man, I'm leaving in second gear. I haven't left in second gear since 300 horsepower ago. And it's just crazy because a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people think you got to put a 15 or you got to put a radial. Did you ever go through that on these? Did you go to the 15s? And
Oh
try
yeah, the general was because the RRs weren't out, so we did that 325, 50, 15 on there. That's what I went
The
220.
big one, right?
No, the big one's the 315 Pro Radial.
Okay.
So the 325, 50, 15 is like the step under it, but a little bit bigger than the X275. The X275 and the 315.
It's like a wide X275 tire.
Yes,
Right.
but it's not the same compound. I found out it's
Oh.
a different compound.
That's what a lot of people in Houston run on is that 325, 50, 15.
It's not.
And they struggle with it.
Yeah,
I'm like,
it's-
you just go to an 18. They're like, I'm not doing that. I want it to hook. I'm like,
It's not.
Okay.
It's not great. We're actually when we take that car to the half mile in like 2 weeks from now, we're bringing a spare set of RRs.
Yeah.
To
But on a
see-
drag strip, it's different. The
on a drag
15
strip they work great, but at the same time, that car, I mean, all these cars on an 18 at the drag strip, like we throw the world out of them and they dead hook.
I have to try that then. I haven't been to the drag strip of mine yet.
You're gonna
But-
get more sidewall cush. So like on for the roll race stuff, like wheel hop is the worst thing. For
I'm talking
any-
about from a dig at the track.
from a dig. You guys are auto cars, right? Yeah, you're gonna be better with the sidewall.
That was one of the first things I did when I walked back here is I wanted to see the tire.
Yeah, it's
And-
all the big power cars are on that.
345, 35, 18. That seems to be the money tire. It's so many people online. They're just like, oh, that doesn't work. Or, oh, I make X amount of power. And I'm like, yeah, dude, you make 1,400 and you run 420. Stop
Yeah,
it.
it's.
Nobody cares.
I mean, we have NA cars. Shit, I think we had a head cam piston rod motor. The guy the other day was running like 570s, and everybody didn't believe him. Like 60 to 130, manual fucking head cam piston rod engine. It's like, that's moving.
Regular manual.
Regular manual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a big difference, too.
Yeah.
Y'all got those cool.
That's a sequential. There's a kind of a debate going on now
What's the debate?
at the half mile whether to allow dog boxes in the manual class because they don't have to lift, but they're still manually moving in an H pattern, but it's wide open throttle shifting. It's
Yeah.
just as fast as a sequential, but like if you do fuck up, you are going to go right back in the wrong gear and like break a bunch of shit.
Right.
But you still don't have to use a clutch. That's
Back in my Honda days, because I had that.
You had a dog box?
No, I was poor, remember? Still poor. I was more poor. We would just start shaving the synchros down. So every other synchro, I'd shave off, and if I couldn't get it to slam the gear fast enough, I'd shave another few synchros off, put it back together, and you shave enough of those little teeth off, you can, no problem.
DIY
basically
by
a
Justin.
faceplate.
Except the poor way. You sink drain spacers for the coilovers to adjust your height, and boy, we can make some stuff work. With all this information, we're going to be redoing my C7 here shortly. Just drop it off up here for a few days.
Right.
But
you talk-
anyways, just to finish off on the tire thing.
Yeah.
I mean, is that something that you kind of figured out, tested? Do you like the ET Street R over the RR?
So we always ran. Toyo didn't have a 345 3518, so for a long time, what they had was either they had the R888s, the R888 and a 345 3019. So we ran those, and it worked, the best we can. Or we put 15s on, and then it was actually Jesus that was like, hey, I'm putting an 18 on. I'm like, dude, there's no good 18s like in that tire size. Like, you're better off with that 19-inch R888 over. And he's like, no, they just came out with this RR. And I'm
He
like,
probably had 15 sets of them.
and he raced that GTR from the shop Houston, that blue one. And fucking, I mean, that was the first time we ever ran 50-something pounds of boost. It wound up hurting a piston, but
Did you win though?
yeah, oh yeah,
Who
by
cares?
like train lengths. They raced on the Hardy, and it like literally had a train going by, and you can count the actual.
You can count the.
Yeah, it was pretty fun.
Jesus Christ.
You could count the train lengths on it.
I'm gonna ask him on the video. We'll say, send me the video.
Yeah, it's all over. Just like I posted it somewhere to that Dan Rue guy, and oh man, it caused all sorts of. Dan Rue
Was it Denver's car?
No, it was his cousin's car, a blue. It was some stripped out methanol billet block.
Not enough.
They claimed when they raced it was 2,200, then it turned into only made 1,600, and this, and I don't know. Like, we know Jesus's
He was
car.
on map 5.
Jesus's car was making like at 50 something pounds of boost, all of 3,000 wheel.
Damn.
And yeah, He wound up so like back to like
And he was on an 18.
18 with an ACR wing.
Well,
It's just wild.
Yeah, and it just fucking dead straight. I mean, that car makes 2,500, and the guy's dad hopped in it, never drove it before, and his first pass was 218 at the half mile. You know, and then he wound up going on to running 223s all day long.
I say we go half and half. We buy a Viper frame. We call it V-Roy.
you said you might just get it from a caravan, though, right?
I mean, it's the same thing, right?
What?
Caravan frame, Viper frame.
Probably.
Close enough.
The caravan frame's probably built better. It was mass produced. It had robots welding it instead of humans.
Dodge permanently bans Calvo from buying any parts. Can I buy this part? Calvo, you're banned.
But yeah, that was actually, I was on a boat and he called me, Jesus. He was like, bro, we got him. We got him. We had it at, he was like, because we gave Jesus and Manuel fucking access to the Motec, so they were always fucking with it.
Yeah.
He's like, we hit 53 pounds. I'm like, remember when you told us to stop tuning at 46 and that's the most you ever wanted to run? And we're like, and he's like, yeah. And I'm like, so what happened? He's like, we think it hurt a turbo or a piston. And what wound up happening, two things we learned. We were using brisk plugs. And they were like non-resistor. There was just something about the way the Motec interacted with them they just didn't like. They were the colder heat range. They were just with import. They just never liked it. And for some reason, that I think it would kill plugs all the time, which is a problem.
Well, Brisk had an issue for a long time.
Was it
with plugs? And I've recently started using them again. But forever, man, they would just foul. They would just run like crap.
Yeah,
after just a couple miles.
We're fighting a bunch of those issues, and then we had it was the first time we ran that much, obviously that much boost and everything, and the intake air temps went through the roof, and we were using one of those old Ford GT pumps. What are they called? The I forget the name of them. It's what everybody used for a while. You know, we fought some intake air temp issues for a while, and then we went to that Pierceburg, and then we PWM'd it. Like, we just hit it with, on or off, and we didn't know that if you PWM it at like 90%, that makes it full tilt. Like, if you go straight, 12 volts, it goes to like 40% or something. We didn't know that. So that was like a learning curve for us too, to figure that out. And once we figured that out and just made some other little changes, like intake air temps went away, like, everything runs nice and smooth now. But like I said, it was a learning curve. We never ran that much power or boost.
That's what you got to love about him. He's like, we'll keep it kind of conservative, but if he needs to win, he will do what it takes to win.
That car was, yeah. He was always telling me, he's like, I told you I was a good driver. You didn't trust me. And I'm like, man, because it was that was my car.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was my personal car. And it was like my little baby, and I was always, anytime it's out, even like the General, Jaddy drives it, it's his car, but it's always got like a little spot. I'm like, I hope it doesn't get wrecked, so.
Yeah, he's definitely gangster with it. He'll do what it takes. He's not scared of nothing.
No, when the car came back here, I'm like, dude, where the fuck's the interior, the speakers, the this? He gutted the whole fucking thing. He's like, I was winning. I was going to do whatever it takes to hit.
And he will.
Yeah,
but if something
overnight
happens,
too, because I saw the car and then 3 days later he brought it here. I'm like, how did you get all this stuff done? Like, you had carbon tillets with like seat rails and this.
Because he stocks that stuff.
But it was for like a Viper. Like, he had it all like, I don't know.
He's the one that taught me that you can Uber parts.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
We Ubered a part from my main line from fucking San Antonio a few months ago.
Yeah, he's like, you can just Uber it. I'm like, what? He's like,
Uber freight?
man, I don't wait for that. Ubered a throttle body. Yeah. I was like, I got one in my house. He goes, good. Tell the guy wait outside. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, Uber's going to pick it up. Who knows that stuff? But the other cool thing, I think, he's one of those guys that if something happens, he owns it. He's like, yep. It happened. All right.
Yeah, he was a great customer. And the thing about him was he had great feedback on the car. Like, a lot of people be like, oh, it was doing like something like this. And you're like looking at the log and like, dude, I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah.
Everything looks good. He could tell you like, you know, he really understood the way the car was working. And
When I did his V3, he was like, man, I felt this. This is what it did. This is where it's at in the log. I'm like, you logged it? Because, you know, everybody's
Yeah,
like, oh, it had this weird thing, but they didn't log it. He logged it. He's like, here's where it's at. This is the tune file that we put in it. This is what we changed, blah, blah, blah. And he sent it all to me. I'm like, oh, there it is. Boom, fix it. Oh, trans fluid was low. Top it off. He's like, all right, done, fixed. I'm like, man, he was really, really a pleasure to work with. So.
And he gave it away.
He did. He gave it away,
Yeah.
but
That's
I
a bad
don't
bitch.
think the new owner has done anything with it. I haven't heard from him.
Yeah.
But those customers are rare, man. They're so rare, and they're getting more rare.
yeah, I'm very fortunate. I have the guy that's building that car right there, that white one. That's getting twin 98s, a billet block.
That's a
and
car.
Yeah,
Make sure you get a picture of that. That's not a whole car.
yeah, that's a car. It just doesn't have the front end
You
on.
gotta imagine. Just for your imagination.
I forget there's that giant 10-cylinder thing that goes in there.
But yeah, it's he's sending us actually. So that's gonna. We're cutting the cage out of that. And we're doing a 25.3 cage like the drag and drive car, but he just wants an all-out race car. He's gonna be sending. He's got a Supra that just had a 25.5 cage done to it. He's gonna be sending that here. Yeah, it's like those guys get it. He's got a Hefner twin turbo STO, and then he's got a Hefner twin turbo drag car. Drag Huracan, and he's like, yeah, the thing breaks fucking, you know, but that's what we're learning, you know.
What's the weak point? Like GTRs, it's the trans. It's just glass, right?
I mean, you put a
Huracans, it's the trans.
the sequentials like live at 2,000 wheel for a while. Like, I mean, people bitch about
What
like
about the stock trans?
stock trans. We put a billet fifth gear in them, and they'll live for a while at 1450. It's a TR 6060
Magnum, right?
So
Is it like the 56? I know had a bigger counter shaft.
okay,
Bigger main
so like
shaft.
this is where people get confused with stuff. T56 and T56 Magnum are two totally separate transmissions, right? The TR 6060 is a T56 Magnum, just the OEM version of it
But isn't the output shaft bigger?
on a Magnum XL.
So the Viper one is their standard.
The Viper one is his own output shaft, right? I think it's 26 or 28
Yeah,
line.
so my RX-7 was a manual, and I did my shaving synchros thing. That does work when you're poor. But somebody had sent me a Viper main shaft, and I was like, oh, cool, I'll put this in. I had to change a couple things in the trans, but I put it all together, and then I'm like, my drive shaft doesn't work.
It was too big.
Yeah, well, the shaft was too big.
So I'm almost 100. Like the Viper, I think is its own shaft, but I think it's the same as a regular Magnum. The Magnum XL is, I think, just longer. Don't quote me. Jaime knows that more than I do. But yeah, I mean, they're pretty beefy stock. I mean, what we usually break is fifth gear on input shaft, and fifth gear, we put a billet fifth gear in them that we have made. It's a Broach 300M, heat treated everything, and like our 1300Xs, I mean, they last a very long time. Like when I have a few customers that like we're good friends, and we'll give them like more power than the 1450, and that's when they usually break the trans. But like we had a customer, we delivered him his car in Indy at a half mile, and he was running 205s all weekend in the half mile shifting, first time ever driving the car, and that car's still to get. We did turn it up for him once, and he was like, man, just leave it there, I'm cool with it, and he broke the trans. But it was like a month later, but it was the input shaft and like I think like the cluster counter shaft gear.
What's the cost for them to go sequential?
Entry level sequential is like 23 grand.
Okay, so similar to C7.
Yeah, but it's not. If you set them up right and they like all the tuning and the ECU's done right, like the shift cuts and everything, they'll last a while. You just have to know that it is a wear item. It's
At 20 grand, that hurts.
Huh?
At 20 grand, that hurts.
But it's 20 grand the first time. The gear sets are like here's a great example. Ned got 5,000 miles at 2,300 wheel. Broke the trans. Sent it in. We upgraded to a billet case, this, that, blah, blah. The rest of the trans looked great. There was only like one or two little broken pieces in it. I think he like chipped a tooth, but we knew at that point like he had to pull his trans out, ship it here, this, that. He's like, just replace it all. And like his whole rebuild was 12 grand. So like in 4 years or 5 years of ownership and 5,000 miles, he spent 12 grand repairing the
that's
car.
worth it, especially at that kind of power.
You know, he hasn't had and one Jessel, a C-clip popped out of the side or something. It had nothing to do with anything, but
so is there a weak point? Like, what about the differential? What about
they're Dana 44s? They're pretty stout. Then we put 9.5 inches in them.
9.5?
Yeah.
Anything weak on the car?
No, they're fucking pretty bulletproof, dude.
Damn.
We started having some issues on the super big power cars. Where
What's super big power to you?
like
25?
2,800, 3,000. At the drag strip, they'll start
power.
actually pushing the clevis that holds the lower control arm. They'll start pushing it through the frame and breaking the whole fucking weld and pushing it like into the frame. So what we start doing is now making like like 1/8-inch metal reinforcement plates and welding it all around.
What about the blocks on these?
3,300, 3,400.
Stock block with sleeves?
Yeah, sleeves are the way we do them.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Can't go into too much of that, but yeah, right. So billet block's not even really a necessary thing.
We have one. We're almost finished with it. So
Of course you do.
4-year fucking project. But yeah, we actually
4-year project?
design a billet block
Damn.
from scratch.
Yeah.
Is it watered?
Yeah.
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 That's what makes it difficult, right? Is the cooling.
And then like we just realized something. So it doesn't have main caps. It is a girdle. So it splits. The
okay.
whole thing comes off, and the one thing so it's got 4 bolts that 4 main studs that come in through the bottom. And the one thing we all overlooked was we put the sleeves in, and we wanted to go bore it, and it now is like cutting a hole into where one of the main bolts go. So we're trying to figure out how to. We don't know. It's just a little hole, right? But we don't know if hot oil getting in there will change any of the torque specs and this and that. So we're trying to figure out a way. We're thinking about like countersinking a screw in there or something on this one, and the next one,
And it's just straight bolts or splayed, or
No, it's just straight, 2 straight ones on each side.
you don't think splayed would be better, or?
We didn't really.
I was just curious.
Yeah, I don't really know. Like we just threw
I know when Dart did their block for like the LS stuff, they did the splayed and they doweled it, which was doweled is everything.
It's doweled all around.
Right.
But I mean, they're 1/2-inch and 9/16 bolts.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I don't think they're going to be moving anywhere, and they're age 625s. So
Until you decide that you need to make 5,000.
yeah, I think the one thing I am curious to see is we're kind of redoing the heads to add a 5th bolt. So I think that's going to help. Like we do really well with just our simple 4-bolt setup with the fire ring deal, but
Could you weld tabs kind of like the LS stuff?
they will. I have a little thing I'm doing in there, so
Okay.
I got it.
I know. I know.
So
What would the billet blocks hold after you're done with it?
I don't know. I'm hoping 45. That's what's going in that car is a billet block. So that car is going to get twin Pro Mod 98s. So 4,000 plus.
So you mentioned to Justin that some of the parts for the Viper were from the Caravan. Is that true or not really true?
Is that true or is that a joke? Tell us the truth.
So I think
You're already banned from Dodge. So
I
it doesn't
think the
matter.
displays actually, like the center console displays were, because I know the Caravans had the problem where you would shut them off and the brains wouldn't go to sleep. So like soccer moms would come out, like their cars would be dead. And my car had a problem, and I took it to the dealer. It had a reverse camera issue or whatever, and I took it to the dealer, and I kept saying, hey, this like battery keeps dying like really quickly, this, that, and they blamed it on the Motec. And I'm like, nope, we double checked all that. There's a relay that like triggers the Motec, and like that relay comes off the ASD1 fuse or whatever. So I know like it's not that, right? And there's a draw somewhere. And what we found out was another tech happened to be walking by, and I was actually pretty lucky he was, because he was like, hey, I think that car needs an update that the Caravans had. I think like back in 2013 or 14, the Caravans had some shit where like they were the brain wouldn't go to sleep. Like the screen would shut off.
The relay would stay on.
Huh?
The relay would stay on.
Yeah, I guess whatever it is, and they did an update and it never did it again.
Anything
that
else
and
similar?
the frame.
And the frame?
No.
I'm sure like fucking the door modules, like it's, you know,
The ECU.
The ECU is the same. I don't
know. It looks just like the same one that's in my '07 Jeep.
probably.
Like plug for plug.
Yeah, it's
I was like, man,
the big
that's
4-plug.
Yeah.
It's like green, orange, yellow. Yep.
I was like, man, that's kind of crazy that would be the same thing running this motor versus that. But I guess cutting costs.
I think it's a Motorola ECU. There was like some crazy like fucking French guy here in town, and he from? It was France or somewhere around there, and he built all these like crazy prototype stuff, and he would come here and always like, oh, let me borrow an ECU or let me try. He got in through the back door of the ECU and started fucking with it, and he was trying to like test stuff on customer cars and this, and I was like, that ain't gonna happen. But you know, I don't know whatever happened to the guy, but he back in France, he had all these like Vipers that he was making all these fucking crazy molds out of. Like some of them look like futuristic. Like I'll see if I can find it. You'll get a kick out of it. They look cool, like whatever they were. You know, but it was like Van Gogh meets the Viper.
Yeah.
So I gotta ask: is Viper considered like part of the Mopar community,
I don't really think so.
Mopar, baby.
I don't. You know,
or is that like a separate?
I don't really, to be honest with you, I don't really know because like I'm not. I like cars that I like. You know, I'm not brand specific.
Right.
I like my Vipers. I like my Porsches. You know, I've never been an Aston Martin fan. My wife got an Aston Martin. I actually really liked it. It was quiet. It cruised nice, and like
Which
it was,
model?
It was a 2020 Vantage. You know,
It's refined.
yeah,
It's the only thing to ever come out of the UK that's worth a shit.
Yeah, it was. You know, it was just a car you get in. It had a great stereo. You know, I didn't like my R8. It didn't do anything for me.
Vantage does kind of look like a Ford Fusion, though.
The Vantage, it's actually a really good looking car.
Like the Ford Fusion. When you see it, you won't be able to unsee it.
I'll see it this time.
Shouldn't have told him.
But it is it is.
They're great. They
Yeah.
drive nice. They're quick. Only thing I wish they were DCTs instead of automatics. But
Have you noticed that a lot of the German cars they're getting rid of DCT?
and going back
They're
to
going
autos.
back autos.
Mm-hmm. I did notice
Why?
that.
I don't know, but I mean they're faster for sure. Not that's figured out. The V10 platform that DCT is money, but for all the other cars like
Porsche,
the
like
whole M4, M3s, Supras, all those, they're all automatics. They're Hellcat transmissions with weaker internals.
I think
They're 8 HP 60 instead of the 8 HP 90.
I think the 997 Turbo Chiptronics was a Dodge transmission, Porsche
Well, it was a
variant.
Daimler,
Whatever it is, but it was. I think there was a guy in Louisiana that used to build them. That would like build a big power, whatever. That I don't know much about him, but I remember I think we sent him a trans for a customer, and then my buddy from AIM was telling me that it's like the same thing that's in a Charger or some. I don't.
Yeah, that's one thing. Like the Hellcat's a really cool car, but I'm not a huge fan of them. But the transmission in them is magic.
Is it? I don't know
It's
anything
so
about
good.
them.
It's so good.
So
But do you think they're done 100% on the Viper this time?
They shut the plant down. So the plant
100%.
it's been the same plant, the Conner Ave plant, since 1992, and it's now a museum.
Dang.
So we're not getting an electric Viper, E-Viper.
We're not getting an E-Viper.
E-Viper.
If they had an E-Viper, would you buy it?
Probably not. I'm actually, it's funny, you know, I went through my like high-end exotic car phase, this, that, blah, blah, and I don't know if I'm just getting old or what, but like I want all the cars I wanted in high school. Like I want a Lightning, I want a 300ZX, I want an RX-7, I want my old Supra back. The owner won't sell it to me. He said it's going to die with him.
Damn.
We just got my wife's 73 Eldorado running. It's got a front wheel drive 500 cubic inch turbo 400 car.
Makes like 280 something horsepower.
Something like
I think.
that.
Yeah.
I don't know. We just
Like
rebuilt the
400
motor.
pound foot.
Yep. So
Those things are like a cloud.
yeah,
Ugh.
it's red with white interior.
Yep.
So
That or like an old Broham.
but yeah, my wife had right before we got together, she had a Sunburst Orange WS6 with 17,000 original miles that has never seen rain with a window sticker.
Damn.
That car's worth some money.
She sold it for 15 grand because she didn't have any place
Huh?
to put it. Yeah, I was like,
That's
what?
probably a 25, 30K car.
Yeah. Yep. I would love to have a WS6.
And then you took her on a trip to buy a Viper.
Huh?
And you
Yep.
took her on
And
a
then
trip
I
to
took
buy
her
a
on a
Viper.
trip to buy a Viper. And then, yeah.
Now you got
Now I
kids
got
on the
twins
way
on the way.
and-
And
Yeah.
so-
I saw the post. I'm like, man, that felt like that was like last week that he was making that trip.
when we finished the General the first time with a built motor, we had a little cam thrust plate issue, and we couldn't get head gaskets because there were like some custom. This is back in 2015, 2016 or something. So we pull the motor out, flip it upside down, back off the rocker arms a little bit, pull the cam out, take the crank out, leave it all, the rods and everything in there, put like, I don't know, 200 cans of brake cleaner through it, put it all back together, put it on the dyno. It's Thursday at like midnight. We take it off the dyno. We have to be in Colorado Friday. Put it on. I used to have a lift right here. Put it on that lift. Check the oil. There was less metal in it than before. We're like, all right, let's go home, shower, come back. We fucking threw the car on in the trailer, showered. We left here at 3 a.m. We drove 20 hours straight. Got to Colorado fucking, I think at like 6:30 p.m. or something. The next day, it was 4 dudes in an F250 with a single trailer. That was the first half-mile event we went to, and the car went like 208 or something.
Jesus.
Damn.
The hustles.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember like we were driving like up through Lubbock, and it's just like there's like those ghost towns that are nothing. And it's like you're going 30 miles an hour through these towns, and then there's like some giant like concrete factory or something out in the middle of nowhere, or like, they grind up dirt or sand or whatever it is to make the concrete. And it's like, dude, it was the first time ever like driving through Texas like that. And I'm like, these roads are like 30, 40 miles an hour, and there's nothing fucking out here. Like nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and nobody could recline the seats or do anything. We were like this for fucking 20 hours in a fucking car.
What about the Viper? Would you consider it like a supercar?
Yeah, I would definitely think it's up there. I mean, it went 7 minutes and 1 second on the Nürburgring. There's not many other cars that do that. I would definitely consider it.
C7Z.
What did a C7Z do?
701.
Same time?
I think so.
Wow.
Yeah, I was just arguing with somebody because he's like C6, and I'm like, stop it.
Yeah, no, 701 was...
I'm going to have to look that up.
Yeah.
Check me. But I think it was 701.
I thought the only car to beat it was a GT2 RS. And then I found out the GT2 RS was modified. But yeah, it was...
Damn.
Cheating ass.
Porsche. So, but yeah, they. I think there's a few cars now that are sub 7s, but for the most part, I think there's in the top 10 cars, they're all under like right around that 7 minute range.
And you have a Porsche yourself, right? GT3 RS?
I got a few of them.
Damn.
I knew
So
that
we
was coming.
were talking about it earlier, but what would you prefer to drive? The
They're just so honestly like
GT3 RS or the ACR?
my 2 favorite cars are basically any Porsche or the Viper. Like no matter what it is, I always get back in those cars. Like I don't think there's a better built car than Porsche, hands down. Actually, my buddies at AIM have my black Porsche.
Yeah.
They're so wildly different. You can't really
Compare 'em?
Huh?
Compare them?
You can't really compare them. They're kind of awesome in their own ways.
Yeah.
But I definitely like every time I get in my ACR, I'm like, man, this car is awesome. And then I'll hop back in my Porsche or, another Porsche. And I'm like, oh, this car is awesome. I finally got to drive a GT2 on Coda about a month ago. I was giving some driving instruction. And it's crazy how the GT2 RS and a GT3 RS are the same body, right? Everything's the same, except one has turbos, one doesn't. One feels like a big fucking heavy boat, and one feels nimble as shit. I didn't feel like everybody says the back end wants to come around on you. It's so violent. I didn't feel that at all with the GT2. I thought it was very controlled for a turbo car. It was my first time driving it. I was on brand new 20s, and I was still doing pretty well for It's fast in the back straight, that's for sure. Like my GT3 RS struggles to hit like 158, 160. I think I was doing like 175 in that car. So
I took a GT3 on a road course once, and all I remember is that it could turn so fast that I felt my intestines trying to get out the door. Because he's like, turn faster. I'm like, dude, I'm doing 60. He's like, it'll do 75 in that turn. I'm like, it's like a right-hand turn.
yeah,
He's like, it will do. He said, get to 75, hold the wheel, and hold on.
There's
and
a double apex in COTA called the Carousel, and you can enter it 80 miles an hour. You're midway. Yeah, I think like my average is between 80 and 85 miles an hour. You don't touch your brakes as you turn. You just go right hand into it. And then you turn into it, and then you kind of start to drift out a little bit, and you'll hit your second apex, and you start to, come back in. The Viper through the apex, I got a screenshot. I'm 90 degrees on the steering wheel, and it says 108 with the steering wheel like this. I can't do that in the GT3.
I did that turn twice, and I threw up. But I can't imagine the ACR. I'd like to see how it compares to that. I know it's a Camaro, but that Z011 LE on the track is an animal.
Nothing I've ever felt like an ACR on Michelin's. Like Michelin softs, like
I'm about to make it a purpose to go drive an ACR now.
Yeah, like put on Michelin, like Michelin softs. Like you could just be the worst driver and just turn the steering wheel and it just it point and shoot. But like the ACR, I'll tell you, the GT3, like I'll get out of it after a 20-minute session midsummer, and I'm not exhausted. You get out of the Viper, like fucking your
worked you,
dude. I've had to like sometimes go in my air conditioned like living quarter trailer and just stare at the ceiling on the floor, like trying to catch my breath.
Damn.
It's a workout. You're shifting, you're doing a lot, and that car is brutal. Like the GT3, you have to turn it, but the ACR, you have to manhandle it. You're
moving a giant motor around in front.
It's a driver's car. It's not for everybody. Like
the Viper's always been a driver's car.
Yeah.
Like I said, since driving that Gen 1, it was like, it was the closest thing I could compare it to was a C5 Z06 fixed rear coupe. In a manual. Like that car
I
was
would
the
love to have one of those too. Yeah. I'd love to have a white.
Everybody wants one of those.
I would love a fucking white C5 and a fucking and a white ZR1, like a C6 ZR1 with that blue interior.
Oh yeah. See that's the C6 ZR1 I would take.
Yeah.
Just to touch base, C7 Z06 710.
So you're nice.
ZR1 657.
Wow.
Suck on that. I knew you were gonna say something.
Wow.
So C7 ZR1 is the king. Did you see the C8 ZR1? Because we totally did this during the release, even though the French people released it.
No, but
1,064 horsepower.
It's funny. One of my customers just texted me as we were starting this podcast about it, and he was like, "I didn't realize he was talking about a C8." I'm like, 1,064 on pump gas.
1,064, like 880 foot-pounds.
Damn.
They keep going back and forth if it's a cross plane or a flat plane. If it's flat plane, it's going to blow up because then it's never going to live. But I'd be curious what the transmission's going to do because, it totally sucks in the Z06. They fail almost like every single one of them.
Really, the DCTs?
Oh, yeah. I
thought Tremec built those.
Is it? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
But I know on the C8, because we can't control the tune on the trans, I know Sissio says that he has that he has them living pretty well at 7 something, but it seems like they only make so many passes. I saw one at Cadillac Attack that was running with us. He ran a low 9, but 3 times, and he said the clutches were done. And that's $7,500 in clutches.
Nobody makes any aftermarket stuff for him.
So, who was it? Fuel Tech said they have a controller for it, and they didn't have a harness or anything available at the time, so they said it. I just don't know.
No, but nobody makes clutches or baskets.
They do. Alex Pites makes a clutch pressure control module.
Okay.
But it's still not enough. The clutches still die. Dodson makes the clutches, but it's $7,400, and you can't control it, so you're in between a terrible driving vehicle that you hope holds until the clutches wear, which is $7,500. You know, you don't really have a lot of options, but I know Delgado's working on it with the Motec, and I know he's got one working, but they just don't have it out there.
Did you know how much the Datsun clutches for a fucking Huracan are?
I don't want to know. 30 grand?
So it's like, yeah, it's something like $28,000 if you do the 1212.
Yeah, plus then you got to buy the diff and all that stuff.
At the end of the day, it's like 90-something thousand retail to have like your drivetrain fortified.
Yeah, which is insane. But I guess if you got that money, you got that money. But the C8 Z06, the Transits, I mean,
Glass.
I've personally known of 9 or 10 people that they've already lost them, brought back to the dealership, had to get them done. Even Stradman on YouTube, his was leaking when he got his. It's just like, how did you miss that mark? So now we're going to get one that makes 1,060. Did they fix that issue, or you know?
Or they went back to an auto.
No, it's going to be DCT. They're not going to get rid of that. I think once they figure out that trans, though, I think it's going to be more similar to the Huracan platform, having that rear engine, turbos on it. I think that car is going to be something to mess with. It's gonna be a serious car. I hope. They're talking about the Zora maybe coming out with the electric motors in the front.
Oh, that would be game over.
Yeah, that'd be nasty. Because I mean, a lot of people hate the C8. Personally, not a fan of it. Because I don't care what you say, it's not a Corvette. Like anybody that's a Corvette guy, that's not a fucking Corvette.
I still love, I think the C6 and C5s are the best looking Corvettes.
C7 is, but that's cool.
No,
You're
I think
entitled
the
to your opinion.
C6 or
Should we
C5s.
quote the ring times again?
Huh?
That you can't tell me.
He said
you're an
best looking.
ACR guy. You're going to tell me the
said best
C7
looking.
ZR1 isn't the best looking car?
No, the C6 definitely.
I'm going to throw this phone at you.
Yeah.
I think the C, dude,
The C7
honestly,
looks good
the
at
C,
every angle.
Nah, I don't know. C5 like FRCs, like that's a great. I think that's one of the better looking.
For its
The
time.
C7s, you want to try to copy the ACRs. That's why.
Okay, if it works, it works. They want to go twos too. You know what I'm saying?
So
Yeah. Whatever, man.
So
And
let's
that's definitely a better looking car.
let's say a customer, they want to build 2,500 horsepower Viper, right? Would you recommend them just getting a GTS or ACR?
honestly, at this point, I would say just find the cheapest car you want. You know, because everything's gonna get changed anyway. Just find a clean car.
Yeah.
Find a clean car. You can add the ACR Aero. You know, I feel almost bad tearing ACRs apart these days.
Really?
Like, yeah, there was only 400 of them built.
Yeah.
So
400 total.
400 total. Or like 415 something, like low 400s.
So just buy a frame, make a V-Roy.
So, but yeah, that's basically, you know, you can buy the aftermarket carbon stuff. You can buy the aftermarket if you want it to look like an ACR.
What was about the price difference between the two cars?
Oh, 100 grand, 130 grand.
Price difference?
Yeah, you can find like a fully optioned out GTS for like 115, 120. Like a clean ACR is going to be 225, 230.
Jeez.
At one point, they were like 400 something.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I mean, it's 25 years, 400 cars.
Yeah.
I get it. But, yeah, I really wish Dodge kind of kept on the path they were going. Even if they don't have this, but, you know, they were helicoptering,
Something,
you know,
like,
cars in. And
there's nothing like, I mean, that was like their iconic sports car. Like, what do they have now? Hellcat.
Demons.
Yeah.
Demons.
But even that's gone too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like, it kind of felt like Dodge was they were the last one keeping it real. I mean, they did a wheelie on a stage. Like, they helicoptered a car in that runs on E85.
Yeah.
You know,
It's crazy because they were so much about the performance stuff for so many years. I think their problem was they just didn't make any money on them. Like they do have problems. You know, the Gen 5s had terrible like recalls, like massive engine failures and shit
Really?
like that.
Jesus.
So, and it was all poor quality control. Like, you know, they tell you like in the factory service manual, 1.5 thou to 3 thou is an acceptable bearing clearance. You just doubled the bearing clearance. Like, how do you, you know, and just being assembled in shitty fucking dirty environments. There was sand casting left in the oil pans.
That's something GM's struggling with now. The trucks are blowing up. But due to GM's manual, it's acceptable to burn a quart of oil per 1,000 miles.
Yeah, that's fucking crazy.
Okay, but they change the oil every 6,500 miles. They run 6 quarts of oil. So you're telling me it's acceptable to run out of oil?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Oil pressure, it's like, I think it's, was it 3 or something, a low amount of PSI oil pressure per 1,000. Something like 7 PSI is totally cool with them. Like, not a chance. But if you look at the manual, that's what it says. It's crazy the low standards that they're holding for these newer cars, and you're starting to see it. You're starting to see them fail. But the trucks, they're just locking up. I mean, this is a truck motor that they've been making for 30 years, and it's been doing fantastic, and now they can't figure it out. So they're kind of killing themselves.
Probably like fucking the new wave of fucking engineers.
One thing I think is cool on Dodge is they gave you so much customization, right? So many different packages, so many different options. I thought that was really cool. One of them that we haven't touched on that I really want to touch on, the truck. The Viper truck.
Oh, the Gen 3 Viper truck.
Why don't you do those?
You know what's crazy? Jaime's been asking us about that, and he goes, lately we've been getting so many emails.
They're popping up cheap. I saw one for $8,000. I almost bought it.
Single cab?
It was in good shape. I think it was. I don't remember. It was in Puerto Rico. I was like, dude. And Wendy's like, you don't need that. I'm like, I do need it.
The problem is the Gen 3 engines were such shit. Like, just
was it the head or was it just the
blocks
rest of
are
it?
all the same.
Okay,
the blocks
so
are pretty much all the same.
Swap a set of heads on it, right?
It's not that easy. The ports are different. Like then you have to use a drive-by-wire manifold.
You don't think somebody'd swap
Is it worth our time? You know, if somebody like came to us and said, "Hey, I want a 1,500 horsepower truck. Here's 180 grand." Like, yeah, that's worth our time. But like, here's my truck. They don't make the wire harnesses for them anymore. Half the wire harnesses are shot. So now I'm gonna fucking be chasing,
Motec.
Wiring. You still have the factory harness unless
okay.
Yeah, it's a PMP harness. Unless you want to do a full harness, and now you just upped your price another $15,000.
Yeah.
Is somebody going to drop $220,000 on a truck? Like, if they want to, sure. But it's like I can finish 2 stock motor bolt-on cars,
Okay. I just thought it was kind of weird that market didn't kind of take off. Plus, there's that one video of that kid doing a burnout, and then he like flips over. Did you see that?
No, but we're doing a motor for a truck right now that he's actually gone 7s.
2-wheel drive?
Yeah. Yeah, turbo 400, twin 88 millimeter Gen 3 truck.
Wow. Add that video in. Be cool, get one of those, make it 4-wheel drive, go talk to Manuel, be like, what's up?
I always thought that would be funny, have something like 4-link pretty badass and just go.
That's what I'm saying. 3,000 horsepower, a smooth 3,200, So
I was lucky. I since June 17th, I've taken 1 day off.
You can't do that.
Since June 17th, I've had 1 day.
You got twins coming, fam.
That's why I'm trying to get all this shit done. I'm here. Like, the only times for me to assemble motors in peace and silence is at 5:30 in the morning.
That's why I work at night. The phone rings less.
Yeah.
Does not ring.
Yeah,
just rings less. But
it's tough. Like, people don't understand. Like, if I'm building a motor, like, would you want somebody else bothering me while I'm building your motor? No.
I get it.
It's the same thing, like, tuning, like, fucking, it's like, hey, I'm tuning your car, like, or I'm tuning somebody else's car, like, I can't help you right now, and
yeah, that's my big thing is when I'm tuning, they're like, I'm like, I could stop and make a quick revision.
Yeah.
But I'd rather let me get home, let me sit down. When I tune a car, I don't want nobody talking to me because I'm doing this remote. You make a mistake, people would prey on me making a mistake that they could show,
That and, like, how many of the people that are running the dyno are actually, like, watching fucking knock, or your air fuel live.
Yeah, yeah.
No, Motec's awesome. I have a fucking screen that has, like, every fucking warning that if it knocks, it shows a giant fucking red thing, knock warning. If lambda's off, lambda warning. Fuel pressure drops, fuel pressure warning. And it's got all the safeties built into it. It's
with the port injection setup that we're using, the 2 IPSI one. He's working on integrating a thing that basically if we have a fault, it'll turn the flashers on.
Oh, cool.
So that way, if we have an issue, it can, hey, my flashers are on. Either I kick somebody's ass or my car's broken.
You'd be surprised how many people like we throw check engine lights at them like through the Motec, and they still just go beat the living shit out
He
of
thought
it.
about doing the check engine light, but I'm like, what if somebody just thinks it's coming on?
Yeah.
You know? And he was like, I can do the flashers. I'm like, killer idea. So
You'd think though, like we've had customers that like check engine lights on and they'll keep beating the shit out of the car, and it's
yeah,
we just now like everything's sent real like stringently, and like it fucking just throws it in limp mode.
Yeah.
that's the best way. People get mad at that too, though, because I had
Until their car fucking doesn't break, for
Yeah.
whatever reason, because they're too stupid to not keep
they'll
beating.
still be mad at you.
Yeah.
All right, one last thing I got. Seeing as you live in California, can you drive that on the street?
What?
The General.
I used to every time. I used to
But
like.
now,
Yeah, I still take it.
is that why it's in the shop?
Huh?
It's in the shop so you don't get canceled?
No, it's in the shop because it's got no motor in it.
Just saying.
I could Fred Flintstone it down the street.
How has it changed around here? Nothing?
Oh, Austin sucks. I hate this place.
Is it as California as we think it is?
It's
I mean, we've
gotten
pretty
be-
much written y'all off.
It's
Like,
gotten
you're not
better.
Texas anymore.
It's gotten better. Like it was, the homeless situation was pretty bad here. I have friends that are cops, and
Did they clean that up though?
yes and no. They're still on every corner. Like they're not.
Well, there's homeless
camps.
people in Houston too.
Yeah,
so.
but like they literally had like full towns. The police don't do anything here. We had a guy walk into the shop in the middle of the day once.
Damn.
Is that why it's keypad?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's always been like that. The door didn't lock all the way. The guy walked in and just walked straight in the back here. And we're like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? Oh man, can I talk to somebody? I got a Ferrari. So I'm like, Tim, go deal with him. I don't have fucking time right now. So Tim's talking to him. The guy stinks. And like 15 minutes, and you can see the guys kind of scouting the place, this and that. So I go in the front. I'm like, hey Tim, I need you to help me with something. Like, can you come in the back? Tim's like, okay, man, cool, bye. So we lock the door. That dude, so the guy exited us across the street, fucking saw him trying to break into cars on the side of the road here. Called the police. Police came. They said, what are you doing? He said, oh, nothing. I'm not doing anything. They let him go. Then he tried to break into Exodus with Tim inside, right? He was saying, that's my Camaro in the back over there. And he's like, no, it's not your Camaro. Like, stop lying. And then finally the guy tried to break into the front door, and the police came the third time and arrested him. And then we found all of the cars in our parking lot. And this is a very rare, this happened one time,
Right.
And yeah, he tried to open up everybody's doors and rummage through stuff, and we were all here. It was like 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. Where they built all those new apartments there that used to be all forest, and they were living in the forest. So when they started building those apartments, they migrated down this way and then started coming this way. And now they're completely gone. But it's it was a massive problem in Austin. Like you couldn't go downtown without getting harassed by homeless people, or they were.
Have you been to LA?
Yeah, it's a shithole. It was downtown was like LA.
We went down there not that long ago. Rodeo Drive, mobile homes that you
Fucking
clearly
shithole, right?
have never driven, other than to that spot. Like I'm talking like 1970s RVs
But
that
I don't understand.
they literally had to have
And they're-
towed
they're
there to park.
Fine with it. It blows my mind that people are okay.
Well, the first
with-
time I went to Rodeo Drive, there was a Bugatti out there,
Yeah.
and it was awesome. And I was like, man, this is really cool. And we went last year, I think it was, and literally campers, tents, all down Rodeo Drive, all along the beach. You can't even see the beach past all the campers. It's unbelievable. And I wonder if that's what they're doing here.
Yeah, no, it's Austin. The allure of Austin is long gone. It used to be a really cool, unique place with like cool bars and restaurants, live music. There was a lot to do, and it wasn't like your commercialized bars. Now it's like oh yeah, we have. Whatever the chain of bars that Houston, Dallas, Austin all have. It's the same thing with the same bullshit, and I never go out anymore. And it's, my God, I had a buddy in town, and we went out for a few drinks, and it was something like $17 a Crown and Coke.
Jesus.
And I'm like, get the fuck. This is downtown Austin. We used to fucking love that we could go out to dinner and drink all night for $100. Now you can't even buy 5 drinks for $100. You know,
That's insane.
Yeah, it's.
What about the progression of the half mile record? You know, was that something you were trying to achieve here just to get that record? Or?
Yeah, we're still actively going. So we have the Gen 5 record. The overall rear-wheel drive is actually held by Morris Malone.
That insane vet. Huh?
Yeah, that vet.
Did you see that new intercooler?
Yeah, that thing
That
makes
thing's
like
so crazy.
4,000 plus wheel. He's a great driver. Morris is a cool dude. It's like, I think it goes him, Sal Patel, us at 233. So we Sal had a Drummond Gen 2 Viper. Car's fast. It fucking was like the first 6-second Viper 15 years ago.
Damn.
Yeah, Drummond was a bad motherfucker. He passed away, I think, about a year ago. But yeah, he built Sal's car. Sal's car was always fucking fast. You know, Drummond always built race cars. He didn't fuck around with street cars. He built fast race cars. So, but yeah, I think coming up this next year, we're going to see some really fast cars. My biggest problem here is none of my customers want to go auto, and the sequentials are just past their limit.
So the sequential isn't. I guess in my head, I always kind of related them to the DCT because it's. I mean, there's no slip, there's no issue.
We went 233 with a sequential, so we were making fucking 2,800 to 3,000 wheel, you know, and we did it in the fucking rain. You know, it was like drizzling out earlier. It stopped. It was drying up, but
you think the auto is going to be?
We just they break. Like you know, Fabricio went through 2 sequentials at TX2K.
Yeah.
You know, you're just at the physical limit of stuff. You know?
And the auto will take it for sure.
Proven.
Yeah.
Fucking Mark Mickey went, 278 in the quarter?
Yep.
278?
278.
Yeah. 514 at 278.
Yeah. Which is.
That's the same trans that's in the General.
Yeah. There's Mark Mickey's trans. That's what's in our Turbo 400 CTSV.
Yeah.
30 grand.
Yeah. We haven't broken that thing yet.
Yeah.
You know? So we had a weird issue with the motor. I think the cam, the trigger wheel for the cam sensor is machined into the cam, and we kept having weird. It would eat plugs randomly. Like, didn't matter if it was 1,000 horsepower or 3,000, whatever. It would just, and it would be random. Like five poles fine, 5 half-mile rips fine. The next one like eat 2 plugs. Never hurt the motor. And then we started trying to do like sync captures and stuff, and we noticed that car was different than every other car. When we pulled the cam out, the trigger wheel just looked different than the rest. So I don't know if timing was drifting or giving us some sort of. It would never show any knock either. That was the weird thing.
The hell.
It was very odd. So we got fresh motor, new cam.
Yeah.
So
you didn't put that back in, right?
No. So hopefully everything goes smooth with it.
Yeah.
And so that car should go fast. So makes 2,800 to 3,000 through an auto. Just get it to hook and go.
For now. Until you let Jesus drive it.
No.
And he's like, "Where's the wheel?" 11. So you gonna come back out to Puerto Rico?
I would love to get out there. I'm good friends with Vicente and Josue owns that car. They're always telling me to get out there. I need to get out there. I mean, once the kids are born,
It's gonna be cool though.
I can't wait.
You're gonna love it.
It's gonna be awesome. So.
You're gonna be like, I don't care about these damn cars.
You're gonna bring them with you to work and everything.
Yeah, I figure I'd teach her how to wire and fucking little
right. So you ain't got to
little hands, and then the boy to fucking machine and fab.
The sad thing is, the more I think about it, people always ask me, they're like, "Man, are you gonna have your kids follow in your footsteps?" And I don't know if it's gonna be there.
Yeah. I think machining and fabricating will always be there.
Always.
Those are traits that are to dying art.
But tuning is not. It's going to be electric cars.
Electric cars, yeah.
Yeah, which,
I hope not.
I really hope not. And I know that I don't think electric cars are the future by any means. Like, I literally bought a Tesla because it was no tax. And for 30 grand, there's not a better car, in my opinion. For an island. I couldn't drive that in Houston because the way we drive, it gets 150 miles of range, not 260. But it's a fun car. It's cheap. It works. I think hybrids would be
That's
more
I
the future.
Ordered, I ordered a Ford Maverick, a
Yeah.
hybrid. Yeah.
Yeah, I think hybrid's the future, but I think they keep messing with the gas hybrids, and they need to go more into the diesel hybrid, because with the diesel you can run less RPM and you can run bigger motors, bigger electric motors.
I see. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And
No, I bought that Maverick. It's a small pickup. It gets 45 miles per gallon.
oh, there's like 1 million in Puerto Rico. I've seen it.
Damn.
Yeah, and you can throw motors in the back. You
Yep.
know, I daily drive an F350. It fucking sucks.
Yeah,
So
but
We're good.
cool.
yeah,
Calvo, I appreciate your time,
No,
man.
anytime. So I'm
was
glad
awesome.
we can do it.
I know you're starting to wind down.
well, he has
Oh,
to
dude,
wake up
I'm-
in a few hours.
I know, right?
What time is it?
Do you want to know?
What?
Do you want to know?
Yeah.
11.
Oh shit.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to check out JustinWhiteTuned for all your GM tuning services. And
Soon to be BMW as well.
soon, but not yet.
Damn.
Thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you check out the podcast on all the audio platforms. And thank you so much. Time to head back to Houston. Appreciate it, guys. Peace.
Have a good night, guys.
Thank you.
Cool.